Hey everyone, and welcome to the Dungeon Lounge. It is me, Elizabeth, and yeah, this is a bit of a new experiment today in the Dungeon Lounge. It is tea time. Tea. I am joined today by Quest Von Fostus, who expressed interest in joining. I've actually just got him deafened right now while I was running the pre-roll, so I'm just gonna bring him on now. Thank you for waiting until I was live to do that, Mel. I appreciate that. Anyways, I'm gonna bring Quest off of mute. Let me know how the sound volumes are for myself versus our soothing background music as well as Quest. But yeah, bring him on now. Hello, Quest.
Hello.
So we are live
now.
now.
You are a naughty, naughty boy.
Wait, yes, he is. He's already in trouble and we barely started. Oh my god, there's a lot of people here. I don't know what to do. Anyways,
Well,
but sorry.
Just jabber on. That's what we're here to do.
I guess so. That's true. But first, before we get too into everything, I did figure I would share what I am having today. So here, I took a photo. This was before I put the tea in the tea, and promptly spilled the tea all over my desk. Hence why I was a little late going live. I was like, ah, crap. Leaf water has gotten everywhere.
You are such an adorable klutz.
I don't mean to. I didn't want to spill tea on my desk. I paid money for that. Quest is a little quiet? Okay, I can fix that.
I am always too quiet. Everybody I know on Discord puts me at 200%.
You know what? I'll just do that. I had you at 130, but I'll put you at 200. There we go.
That was before I got a microphone with a gain knob, so I would be careful about that.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm also gonna adjust the Spotify down a little bit. There we go. Sound mixing for dummies, because I certainly don't have a soundboard.
I only just recently got acquainted with a digital equalizer.
Oh!
Work through some of my issues.
Thank you for the follow! Sorry. Thank you for the follow, Starlight Chariot. I just realized
Starlight Chariot is a good friend of mine. She did for my concept.
That's nice. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm just going to fix my alerts because I just realized I needed to cover my face. Ah! I haven't fixed it yet! Tiaras and tea kettles also, thank you for the follow!
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome. Okay, I put it there. There, I think I fixed it. Okay. Also that. There we go. All right. Hello, welcome. Sorry, I'm a little bit overwhelmed right now. Anyways. I think I've got the sound mix stuff figured out, but if not, please let me know. And yeah, I guess so yeah, I've got picture of all snacks. I'm drinking a black tea today. Specifically, it's themed around a band called Poets of the Fall, sorry. It's Nordqvist. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Apparently, it's a Finnish tea brand.
I have a Finnish friend. I could probably ask him about that.
Oh.
But,
Oh, I'm already under orders. Licky Glocker is requiring me to nya. Tea time, nya.
Yes, Nordqvist. It's a Moomin
What's
Yeah.
a moomin, yeah?
You know what a Moomin is?
No, yeah.
Oh, I've got to send you a picture. They're adorable. Very, very popular cartoon. Goes
Oh.
back a long way.
Oh, yeah. I
Uh,
love new teas and tiaras. Tiaras and tea kettles. I said that the wrong way around, yeah. I'm very sorry.
you might recognize it on first glance.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how long the nya redeem goes for, so I'll just keep doing it till I forget nya.
That's a Moomin.
I have never seen that before in my life, nya.
Oh, that's a shame.
I'm sorry, nya. I am very
Oh, don't
sheltered in the land of Canada. Yeah.
yeah, tucked away in the Canuckian wastes. Uh,
Yeah. So I know you've had a
um,
long work day. You were mentioning that before we got started today.
yeah.
So.
My work starts fairly early in the day. And while it is not necessarily a long day typically,
Mhm.
the work is physical and intensive, so it leaves me
Oh.
kind of kaput afterwards.
Like how early
Which
is
is
early, nya?
wake up at around 4:30 to 5 a.m., get to work at 6.
Okay, that's very early, nya.
Yeah, early riser. I'm usually awake before the sun's even up.
Oh my goodness. And it's like what, 7 o'clock or so for you now? Yeah.
7 p.m., yes.
Oh my goodness. You have to go to bed soon.
Well, no, actually, because I've got a session of Warhammer I'm running after we're done with this.
Oh, what, like tabletop or
Um,
different?
Warhammer Roleplay Second Edition. Warhammer
Oh.
Fantasy Roleplay specifically.
Oh, okay. Is that the Fantasy Flight one?
No, Fantasy Flight, I believe, is the third edition. Fourth edition is Catalyst Games. Second edition is it's the English studio that originally made it.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's the one that runs primarily. I think they all run on primarily on D100 percentile dice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the Fantasy Flight one is third edition. That's the one that has all the special dice and the standees and props that Fantasy Flight always love to throw in with their
Mm-hmm.
boxes, which is why they're fucking impossible to run online.
Mm-hmm. I remember when they acquired Legend of the Five Rings, and we were initially like, oh, good, that means they're gonna maybe put out a new tabletop and everything like that. And then we saw the rule
Nope.
system, and then the dice we had to get, and it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
never mind, I'm gonna stay on fourth ed forever.
That was the second. That was the second great atrocity they committed to Legend of the Five Rings. You
Oh,
know what the first one was?
I'm sure it has to do with the card game.
Oh, well, okay. No, the card game is the third atrocity. There's many atrocities put towards it.
Mm,
There was the card game
yeah.
because they tried to card game fucking everything.
Mm,
That's how second edition of D&D got run into the ground.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. There was the card game. They also did that to Vampire. That almost killed the franchise. There was the card game. There was the um, Fantasy Flight game. And then there was the time they tried that Wizards of the Coast, of course, ever hungry for more things to devour,
Yeah.
decided there's a popular RPG out there. We can't have competitors. Let's
Mm,
buy the IP for at least the license for a time, and let's try to put it into a single source book that we will then shoehorn into the Faerun setting,
mm-hmm.
which is how we got Oriental Adventures in third
Yes.
edition.
Oh, I remember those books, like at the local
You
comic
got
book store.
Yep, and then you
Oh
had
my
the
god.
crappy samurai class that barely
Mm-hmm.
functioned. It was built mostly around intimidation. You had you got the ninja that got brought in, which was kind of a mix between a monk and a rogue. Use a different type of sneak attack. You had the corruption and the oni and all that, which
Mm.
conflicted with the pre-existing oni from Faerun that were already there. That was the ogre mages.
Oh no.
And then they tried to shoehorn Rokugan as a landmass into Faerun for a time.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, it was not a well executed thing. It is largely regarded as a mess, and most people don't use the book as actual like setting implementation. People don't go to Rokugan in 3.5 anymore.
No, no, I would. Ugh. I mean, like I kind of get where they were like maybe like the idea of it being like this system kind of does this the samurai and that kind of like that style of game better. Maybe we can
Mhm.
incorporate it for people who want a D&D experience but a little more of this flavor. But like, ugh. I mean, like
Yeah, and
L5R also like I don't want to say it's aged badly or there's aspects to it, but it is basically a bunch of weebs when that
oh,
term did not yet
absolutely.
exist making an
Oh,
RPG
absolutely.
setting.
I mean, first and second edition of D&D had Oriental Adventures as a thing before Rokugan ever
Okay,
existed.
yeah.
So they had implemented like a Far East type of setting and classes and kits and all that. So it'd been done before. They did that. They had stuff for that, but it was usually in different settings, like Greyhawk
Mm,
or Dark Sun. I think Dark Sun was actually third edition. Yeah, it was third edition.
mm-hmm.
You had Greyhawk and Dragonlance, forever curse its name. Um, but then Faerun came around in third edition 3.5.
Mm,
Um, so they had to come up with a new Oriental style region and classes and stuff for that. And then they went, you know what we're going to do? We're going to be lazy about it because I'm sorry, but Wizards has been anything but motivated since the time they got D&D
yeah.
under their license. Um, and yeah, they basically went, okay, let's take that, let's shoehorn it in here, see how it works. Didn't go so well. Yeah, L5 Bar I absolutely love. It's incredibly
Mm,
dramatic, and it's narrative based in some cases, but also crazy wushu action.
mm-hmm.
Um, Al-Qadim and Spelljammer were cool. Spelljammer was a joke at the time it was released because it was supposed to be silly. It was meant to be
Oh,
silly.
okay.
It was like first edition Warhammer silly.
Okay, like so
Um,
pure satire, all that stuff.
oh, absolutely, just
Okay.
balls to the wall. Spelljammer was jokey. You had the crystal spheres, which was a cool concept. But then you had things like what was it? The giant hippo men.
Which is not like I mean, the new what's it called series. We're able to sell hippo people. Um, Moon
Mm,
Knight, the Moon Marvel
Moon Knight.
series.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Al Qadim brought in Middle Eastern. That was cool. I actually quite
Mm,
like that. What's it called? Sand Scourge, I believe it was.
mm.
Um, Sandstorm. That was it. Sandstorm. Even brought in things like dehydration rules and spells that let you pull the water out of somebody's body. That was fucking brutal.
Ooh, that makes
Yeah,
me
no, I
think of like
absolutely love.
Avatar.
Yeah, L5R is great. I love it. But it was absolutely made by a group of weebs who just wanted to weeb out. And with me and my friends, we want to unleash the inner weeb. That's what we play.
Mm-hmm.
Though we are looking, and this is weird, but we are looking at. Are you aware of D20 Modern?
I'm sorry. Am I familiar with D20?
Modern.
I'm aware of it. I've never looked at the rule or any of the source material for it, but I know it exists. It's like if you want to have your um, modern setting with guns in 20th century, it's what they
Yeah,
propose as the system. Yeah.
it's effectively a 3.5 hack of. It's a hack of 3.5 to fit more into the modern day. Rather than the typical classes, you have base classes.
Mm-hmm.
You get like 5 levels in them. They are for each individual stat. You have the strong hero, the dexterous hero, the fast hero, the tough hero, the charismatic hero, the smart hero, and the wise hero.
Mm.
And then on top of that, you have prestige classes. It is a system built on prestige classes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
If you are a wise hero, you might spec in to be a combat medic, which will give you non-magical ways of healing your friends.
Ooh.
The smart hero is a skill monkey. Go figure.
Mm.
Um, and then someone, I believe there's a group of Italians, because the original documents were in Italian,
Oh.
decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make a Naruto adaptation of D20 Modern,
Oh.
and we're going to make it great. And we're going to make 20 different books, and they're all going to be incredibly fleshed out. You're going to have feats out the wazoo, different classes and all that. And me and my friends just took a look at it and goes, "This is really camp, and we really want to play it."
I remember, years ago, like this is a long, long time ago, back when Bleach was in its peak. A friend of mine, I don't really talk to him anymore, but he made a adaptation in Besem using the Bleach system. So like you had like the whole like the
Oh,
Bankais and everything like that. And it was
of
just
all the systems, that would be the perfect one. And
yeah.
Small Mouth is like, I think the only one that would be more over the top and actually probably just isn't a good system to begin with. I believe it was called Aura or something like that.
Oh, I've never heard of that one before.
It's this stupidly anime tabletop that where you can create a character that can literally split worlds at character creation.
I mean, if I want to do that, I'll just play Exalted.
Yeah, that's true. But with Exalted, you still have to work up to that point. You
Mm,
need at least like 3 essence before you can start doing that shit.
fair enough, fair enough.
When this, it is so hilariously easy to snap and bend and break
Mm-hmm.
that most people just consider it a bad system. Unless it's like mutants and masterminds. You have to be working on a certain level of goodwill and good faith that your
Mm.
players and your GM aren't going to take the incredibly pliable rules. Mutants and masterminds is particularly notorious because some powers, yeah, they have rules for how they don't integrate. Like for instance, no what's called nesting.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot generate water and then control the water. Like if you're a hydrokinetic and a hydrogenic, then you can't mix the two. You can't control whatever water you generate. You can only control water that's natural.
Okay.
The water you create disappears after a while, or it stays, but it's inert. You can't control it. However, there are certain things that aren't specified, like the fact that if you have a level 1 creation power, you can create a 5 foot by 5 foot cube of something. And one of my players decided, you know what I'm going to create? I'm going to create antimatter.
Oh no.
So you have this storm of like, because it's like, yeah, what would happen if a 5 by 5 foot cube of antimatter were to be generated in a spot next to one of your enemies, for instance?
Oh no.
Well, first, all the light and matter and air in the area would be destroyed, meaning there would be a massive vacuum that would suck everybody into the antimatter. Antimatter reacting with normal matter is possibly the only purely energetic reaction as possible by physics, meaning you would have a large flash of light that would blind you if you were looking at it, followed by a wave of energy and pressure that would incinerate you down to a molecule.
Yep.
Yeah, so then there's, of course, many games of Mutants and Masterminds that I've played always come accompanied with a long blacklist that is about 3 to 4 times longer than the list of white.
Thou shalt not.
Ones.
No
Yeah.
black holes in game 1, please.
Yeah, no. There's a power that allows you to expand your perception. The first tier allows you to expand it out by a multiplier. The second tier, if you have an attack, depending on the tier, expands your perception out to a certain range. This might be a single sense. This might be any sense. It might be a sixth sense. To the point where, of course, if you are powerful enough, you can have a sense that you can be omniscient. You can sense everything on the planet. Now, this is powerful in its own right, and it could be an entire hero on its own. And then there's you have your attacks you can create, blasts, for instance, which is just a damaging ability with a range modifier because the abilities are very modular. Take something, add more things on top of it until it resembles a power.
Gotcha.
It's like Legos.
Ooh.
One of the things you can add onto an attack is a range enhancer. It costs a couple power points, but it's also multiplicative. So depending on the cost of the base power, it might multiply the cost by 2, for instance.
Oh, wow.
First tier, I think doubles the range. Second tier makes it perception range, so wherever you can sense. You can see how badly this would pair.
Yeah, and it's like here's a laser hitting you from. I'm in Canada. I'm hitting this person in Japan with a laser. Pew.
Yeah, you can sit in a bunker 10 miles underground and zap someone on the other side of the planet with no repercussions. You can tell why this would not be fun in a tabletop game.
Well, I'm sure it's fun for the person who did it, but
because the person who did it just kind of sat there pew-pewing everybody, laughed at first, and then just went, "Wow, this is kind of boring."
Yeah, you only get that fun. That's only fun so many times before it's just like, here's a problem. I laser it. Oh.
Yeah, and then all your friends stop being friends. Yeah. Very, very crunchy system. Not a huge fan of it. I have a couple friends who are much more into it themselves, and they have created dozens of characters. Because they like running it and they like playing it. But it's not for me.
That's fair. I mean, I've never played that system. There's a lot of systems I'm aware of but have never tried. My expertise lies more in the World of Darkness systems, as well as I've run Besm games. Both of my 2 Besm games were based off of the Persona system, or not,
Excellent.
sorry, Persona series. Um,
Mhm.
I ran one kind of like my take on Persona 3, and then another sequel game kind of based on my take of Persona 4. And people continue asking me, when Persona 5? And it's like, sometime. Because they did put out a new version of Besem, I think maybe a year ago? Year and a half?
Yeah. Oh, and
It was a Kickstarter.
there's Yimph. There's there was a
Oh,
Persona game
hello,
that you got off
Yinf.
base. That
Also,
Yimph
hello,
is
Kishnam. I missed you earlier. Hello.
yeah. And
See?
Persona.
See, there it is. Floor is one of the
Bring
players.
Persona. Yeah. Yimph is a good friend of mine. He's one of the people I was referring to. He
Oh,
has
okay.
run several Mutants and Masterminds games for me and my
Oh.
friends group, and I run games for him. He's also one of my players in the Warhammer game.
Oh, cool. Yeah, the one super system I have been able to try is Masks, which I've heard is very mixed because it's more of a narrative based system than
Mm.
it's. If you're coming from something like D&D, you're gonna get into Masks and be like, "Wait, what am I doing? This doesn't make sense."
Mm.
Or at least that's kind of how I've seen some people interpret it because it's not um because also like your stats wiggle around a lot.
Okay, that could cause issues. Yeah.
Because I'm trying to remember because there's like your weirdness meter, there's like your mundane meter, there's like your I don't have it,
Yeah.
but
You can
and they can wiggle around based on how you're playing your character and things like that.
Mm. I find World of Darkness does uh, fluctuating stats best. They keep it to maybe 2 meters, so to say, at
Mm-hmm.
most. Like if you're a vampire, you have your humanity and you have your blood meter. That's the only
Mm-hmm.
thing that goes back and forth like that.
Yeah.
Everything else
Oh,
goes like changes in like a combat encounter by like a point at most.
thank you very much for
Things
the
like that.
follow, Yinf. I hope I pronounced that right. I know
Yimp,
Quest already
yes.
said it, and then my brain is like, pronunciation. Sorry.
He's, he's friendly friend.
Yay.
So yeah, World of Darkness is always a great game.
Yeah.
Um, Always a big fan of that.
I do find you
Have
have to
been.
be within the right mindset for it and also with the right player group because I remember
Mm.
years ago, this was actually Mal, he tried to run a game of Promethean. So this would have been in the New WOD setting.
Oh.
And I don't think the players at the time, I was going to be in this game, but I missed first session because I had work or something. And when I was like talking to everyone afterwards, I was like, "Oh, how did first session go? I'm looking forward to be integrated." And they're like, "Oh, it's all he canceled the campaign." I'm like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "Yeah, we wanted to play Ghostbusters, and he said that wasn't what he wanted to run." And I'm like, "What do you mean you wanted to? What?" And he was. I was talking to Mal afterwards, and he was
Mm.
like, "Yeah, they started using their electricity powers as Prometheans to start making these like the VFib, the thing you use to restart people's hearts."
Oh, a defib, yeah.
A defib, there we go. And they were using it like were weaponizing it and carrying them on their back because they had the strength to do so. And he's just like, Malchus was like, this is not the game I wanted to run. This is supposed to be a game about, the quest of humanity and things. And if that's not what you're in the mood for, that's not a problem. We can play a different game, but we don't seem to be in alignment about what we're going to play.
Yeah, that's a special way to go about it. Normally, Promethean is supposed to be like trying to find your humanity, trying to
Yeah.
evolve into a real boy,
Mm-hmm.
trying to disguise yourself amongst humans, despite being in very
Not.
what do you call it? Very uncanny valley.
Yes.
Very much uncanny valley because you are an artificial life form.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want to play Ghostbusters, you play Wraith or you play Hunter.
Yeah, and I think that might have been like we had come off of I think we had come off of a Hunter campaign, and I think that might have been part of it at the time.
Ah,
It was that people were still in the, like, especially because it was not the new Hunter. The new Hunter wasn't out by that point, I don't think. It was old Hunter. So that would have been like
mm,
the Avengers and the Martyr class and everything like that. So
right.
you, like,
Yeah,
where you can,
like the
like, the
class and
Avengers can literally grab, like, a crowbar and, like, I'm setting this alight with the light of God, and I will
pretty
smite
much.
thee.
Yeah, and then you have like the lost mad oracles who have forever been lost from the conclave.
Mm,
I remember I think I was playing in a game. I believe it was run by my brother. I was
okay.
playing a redeemer
Mm,
whose main power when he first got it was the ability to interject, shout a word, try to remind a monster of its humanity, stop it in its tracks.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, that was fun. Um, we spent at least half of a combat encounter beating on a single zombie because zombies have a ridiculous toughness despite being like scum of the scum.
Yeah, like you usually have to target one of their weaknesses, I think.
We we did. We
Oh
put a
no.
shotgun right to its head, and
Oh,
it
no.
still wouldn't die.
How dare it? Or was it because the dice weren't being cooperative? Because it's like, oh,
It was
here's
not.
here's your 10 dice. I rolled a critical
Yeah.
or not. No, wait. In the old WAD system, you could critical fail on a number of dice. It's only new WAD where it's like you had to go down to a chance dice to have a botch.
That was the Imps game. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. I think it's. I believe it's. You have to roll one equal to half the amount of dice you roll.
Um,
Or is that Shadowrun? Not Shadowrun.
the critical failure system I remember, and then again, I could be confusing this with 20th anniversary editions of the re-release of the original system, is if you roll more ones than successes, you will you will
Yeah.
botch.
That was it.
And then in
But
New
yeah.
WAD, your dice pool would just lose dice, and if you were down to what was called a chance die, if you roll a 1 on the chance die, that would be considered a botch in the new WAD system. So it was a lot harder to botch when they went to that system. But then again, in the end, I think like most people, I don't want to say they disliked new WAD, but I think a lot of people had a lot of that reaction of, but where's my clan or where's my this? And
I was not fond of the fact that they boiled down all the different clans into 5 clans. I will
yes,
say that.
and then it became like a lot of and then I found like they tried to fix it by where it's like, look at all these bloodlines, so many bloodlines. Where it's like, oh, we're sorry we didn't include Malkavian. You just have to be a Ventru now who was bitten by a specific member of the Malkavian clan, and now you can be a crazy Ventru. And it's like, oh,
I don't want to be a crazy Ventru. I want to play Malkavian.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the reaction, right?
I think to some degree.
The zombie encounter was very much. It had like 5 in toughness. It had, I think it had a lot of automatic successes on its soak rolls. And you can't do bashing damage to zombies. You have to do lethal damage in order to kill it.
Yeah.
And the dice were just being very uncooperative. Any damage we were doing was just enough to be completely soaked by the zombie.
Oh no.
Yeah. It didn't help that we were mostly we were a bunch of people out we were in the sticks. I think we were in like Louisiana or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And we were pretty much just like self-made hunters. My guy was a 2-tour veteran of Afghanistan. He was a combat medic, came back, was working in his shop with his brother at one point, or his cousin. It was his cousin when they got attacked by a zombie in his brother in his cousin's auto shop, and had to fend it off. And he saved his cousin from being bitten by discovering his powers and interjecting just at the right moment before he was about to be bombed. Gotcha. And they both eventually had the veil peeled away. But yeah, that zombie encounter was frustrating. That was 2 hours spent whacking a small horde of 6 zombies and then spending the rest of the encounter just trying to kill this one fucking undead.
I find like with Hunter especially, like the difficulty level of the game changes based on where you base it. And I think that was called out in the Hunter book because they were like, if you're in the United States, guess what? You want guns to go hunting? Go to Walmart. Where it's like, if you choose to set in areas of Europe or if you choose to set in Canada, it's like, maybe if you're lucky, you can go get a hunting rifle, but you're going to need all these permits and you're going to have to go through all of this. Like, you better know someone who already has these connections because you're not just going to go get it. If you're a Toronto-based hunter, guess what? You don't have access to guns.
You're stuck to knives and bats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You look at the you look at the Alpha Busa series, for instance. And they're set in England, in East Anglia. And the only reason they have guns like that is, for one, Door's American. 2, Big D has black market contacts and illegal firearms, very specifically illegal firearms. Everything else they have, you see, is old, outdated firearms attached to sharpened sticks. It's all very kiboshed, not kiboshed, kit-bashed. Knocked together. It's knives and improvised weapons, a blowtorch, a acetylene torch, things like that.
Yeah,
you have to get creative. There's a whole armory that got added to Hunter, I think in 1st edition, that we co-opted into the 2nd edition version, because Hunter never got an update after 2nd edition.
I think one's coming.
Hopefully. I do pray. I hope it's
I
good.
seem to recall they announced it, and it's part of like the fifth. Like I think we're in what fifth edition now for World of Darkness, because there was the vampire that
I mean,
came out.
there was the 5e vampire, and people
Yeah,
got a little bit angry at that.
they
I
got
remember
mad at
seeing
that.
things like
Yeah.
there was like the hunger die that got incorporated. I remember that much.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if the hungrier you got more dice to roll on checks, but if they came up, I think in just ones, you might go into frenzy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I remember. I watched Loading Ready Run did a kind of a. I don't want to call it a one shot. It went for like 3 sessions, but yeah, it was using the newer mechanics with the hunger dice,
Mm.
and I thought it was like it led to some really interesting things happening in the session where it's like, okay, they rolled the successes. They need to like I think it was a drive check. They were being chased by like werewolves on motorcycles, and they were in a van at the time, and the person passed their drive check, and then they're like, oh, but I also rolled frenzy, and they're like, you're driving mad then, and like basically it was kind of narratively interpreted as basically they were taking the van and like trying to slam the van into the motorcycles as opposed to trying to evade.
Talk about road rage.
Yeah, like just basically road rage triggered, and the beast was driving.
Mm. Uh, that must have been an interesting scene.
Oh, it was just one of those things like where you just like it kind of like escalated because like a few other checks also happened where like they started like trying to throw things out of the back of the van at the motorcycle, but then again the frenzy hit. So like I think
Oh,
one of them ended up like ripping out like basically the back chair and just yeeting it out the door.
that's one way to go about it. Yeah. If you want to be really mean,
Mm,
because the beast is a beast, it's just an animal.
yeah.
If you want to be really mean, the person who rolls frenzy might just launch themselves out the back of the van at the werewolves.
Hmm.
But that's if I was going
At
to
the
do an
time it
asshole.
happened, they were trying to undo a seatbelt to get a passenger out.
Ah,
So that's why they kind of seized on the chair
yeah,
as
they
opposed
were
to
focused
lunging
on the
themselves.
chair,
Hmm.
and like the chair might have been like a target of frustration,
Yeah.
and the beast came boiling up, and they went, "Fuck it, I'm throwing this chair."
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Ah, yeah, that makes sense. That was good narrative decision.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I do love World of Darkness. I do want to
Yeah.
get around to running that again. Vampire is always a treat. One thing I do have I'm familiar with Vampire is you really do have to have everybody on the same page when you do it.
Yes. Yeah.
If you're going to do a combat campaign, everybody has to know. If you're going to have a political campaign, everybody has to be on that page, because if you
Hmm.
have several vampires all specced into different areas,
Hmm.
yeah, you have your specialists, but you're going to have a lot of sessions where it's going to be one guy doing their thing and the rest just kind of sitting to the side.
Yeah.
I think the first one I ran, we had a couple of social players, one who was very focused on keeping her humanity up,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
which ultimately resulted in her doing a lot of going, I can't do that, and just standing at the side and doing nothing, which
Oh
made
no.
made
That I find
the
sometimes
player
can
feel useless.
happen with L5R if
Mm,
you have a mixed party. So like I
yeah.
remember like in our current L5R campaign, which is being run right now by Flora. One of the party members, actually specifically it's Sasha, is she's playing a tortoise diplomat or
Mm,
courtier.
Portier. Yeah.
So courtiers basically, generally speaking, unless you really go out of your way, have no combat skills.
Mm,
So generally speaking, what Sasha does is if we enter combat, she has a Yojimbo named Hajime,
nice.
and she generally will temporarily jump over to Hajime for the
That's a good
combat,
decision.
unless, like, say for instance, unless Johan being in danger, sorry, that's Sasha's character's name, is part of like the combat encounter.
Mm.
Or things like that, or like sometimes also like if
I've
Sasha
heard.
doesn't feel like if she just wants to watch the combat, sometimes she'll just say, Hajime can run himself and I'll just observe. It'll depend on where she's feeling that night.
Hmm.
um but yes, Johan and Hajime are very good boys, and I definitely don't ship them. I ship
Oh
them.
boy.
I ship them so bad.
Um,
Okay.
the classic love tale of a
Yes.
diplomat and his bodyguard. I've
Yeah.
heard allusions to Hajime in previous streams.
Yes, yeah, Hajime's come up before because
Mm.
he's almost died a few times. So
Oh,
it's been
okay.
very whoops.
Yeah.
And
The
definitely not because Johan botched some diplomatic roles talking to some Angie samurai. Definitely not.
yeah. Samurai are easily offended and just as quick to go for their swords.
Hmm.
It's a dicey thing to deal with.
Isn't that in your control, Flora? You're the GM.
I mean, it's as much her control as it is
Mm,
Sasha's.
that's true. That's true.
It's as I always say, it is a cooperative storytelling experience. So
Hello,
the quest.
Displacer Cat. Yes, it's the quest.
Hello,
I don't know if I'm the Liz. I'm a Liz. I think there's more Elizabeths out there.
you are Eliz.
Yes.
But yes, hello, Dissy. How you doing?
Hello.
Another friend of mine.
This is
Uh,
true. I like Flora, sorry, was just mentioning like I don't control your role playing. I would not like so many things get so I don't want to say derailed because like when you think back on it, you're like that made so much sense, but just like that idea of just the kind of
so
the character taking the reins and then it's like, oh, the plot's going over here. Oh crap.
the one
And the
kneeling
GM's not
behind.
planned for it at all. And it's like there's that
There,
you know
there's
I don't hear it as
there's
much. Oh,
going
sorry, head.
there's going off the rail. There's
Mhm.
sidetracking and getting distracted and
Mhm.
taking away from the fun by getting off the path and wasting time. Then there
Mhm.
is going off the rails in the best way, which I find is even better than things going to plan in my
Mhm.
mind, because improv moments like that make tabletop for me.
Yeah. Like I was thinking a bit about so there was the Exalted game I ran on stream and that final combat encounter, I don't know how much of it came through. I know the VOD was very choppy because my internet that day was a piece of crap.
Yeah, I remember
And
that. Also, when I say hydrate posture and
oh,
stretch.
yes, okay. I will put this down and I will stretch. I'm
Uh,
definitely hydrating. I'm hydrating. I have tea. So I've been hydrating the whole time. I promise.
mm. Yes, you were saying.
Yes. But that final combat encounter, like, to some degree, I was like, you know what, I'll just put the pieces on the board and let's see what happens, because I didn't want to. Because one, I know with Exalted, like, I cannot account for every situation. Ooh woo. So, ooh woo, I was like, I'll have a War Strider, and then I'll have a zombie army, ooh woo, and some Death Knights, ooh woo, and then let's see how this all interacts, and maybe everyone will die, or maybe they won't, ooh woo. They didn't all die, so that was great, ooh woo. But I liked in the end, ooh woo, how they came up with the idea, ooh woo, that to they were able to convince the guy piloting the War Strider, ooh woo, to kind of help them out. So he ended up like kind of like throwing himself over the edge with one of the Death Knights, and I thought that all worked out because they did more of a social combat ooh woo with him rather than trying to fight physically the War Strider because he had 20 soak on everything ooh woo. Oh no, your picture changed, Quest.
I thought I thought I'd do a little bit of solidarity with you.
Oh, I see. Ooh woo. Here, I'll just. You're, it's like you're
Oh,
peeking, so I'll bring you up. There you are. Now you're up.
hello there.
Hello. Ooh woo.
How are ye mortals in despair?
That is a very cute plushie. Ooh woo.
Solidarity.
Sorry,
Yes.
dowdy. Ooh woo. Though I think I've done enough ooh woos to go back to my normal voice. Again, I honestly should probably put a thing on it where it's like I promise to do it for X amount of time and actually like time myself as opposed to just until I remember about it or till I
Mm.
forget. Whoops. I probably have
Um,
some like redeems that go for like 10 minutes and then sometimes it's like, oh, I did it for a minute and then I forgot. Whoops.
uh,
Your mileage may
sometimes
vary on your value of your woo.
depends on how much of a space case that day
Yep.
this is. But
Oh,
yeah,
thank you. Now I also have to bark. Arf.
arf arf.
Bark.
How much is that Lizzie in the window? Arf arf.
I am too expensive for you. Arf.
Aw.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Licky Glock. Arf. Arf.
And seeing as the Ubu is done, I shall change back.
Yeah, that thing is handy. Like you can kind of like
Mm.
change images on the fly.
Yeah.
Arf.
I also use Viato, which has multiple presets you can have if you're doing PNG tuning.
Oh, arf.
You can switch them over, and they also have like different motion presets. So like you can have one that's sort of like bobbing back and forth, and then when you speak, it jitters back and forth.
Ooh. Arf.
It's a fun little tool to use if you're doing the PNG tool.
I see. Why
Uh,
would you
um,
displace the window away, Displacer Cat? Arf.
Woof, woof.
Would you not be able to watch if it left? Arf.
I think the Splicer Cat is living up to her chaotic neutral what do you call it? Her chaotic neutral bent in that she wants to steal you out of the shop.
No! Arf.
Oh no.
I
Yeah.
am the Liz of the people. Arf.
Yes, our Liz.
Or
Not
not. I
my
don't know.
waifu, our waifu. But
It's
yes,
funny how this has been so far, like just like a whole lot of talking about RPGs. I'm not complaining, mind you.
well, it's my my joie de vivre and all that.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I find like it's not something like unless I'm talking to like members of the Dungeon Lounge or things like that. Like it's not something I generally get to talk about as much as I would like. Like I did a collab with a couple other channels for like some tabletops here and there, but like it's something that I wish I could do more about, I guess.
hmm,
Because like I find like with a lot of like tabletop content, like it tends to be your um it's more about either watching like pre-done games, which is fine, like on YouTube or whatever, or
mhm.
it's like you get like these long form essays going into like all this information about a setting and things like that, which is good. Um, but it's not as easy to engage with the other person when they're doing those long form essays and things like that.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Hello,
Um,
Alosin. Sorry,
hello,
keep it in.
Anderson. Um, hmm, yeah. But yeah, we can change topic if you want. You don't want to
Oh
watch
no,
anymore
no,
about.
it wasn't an indication.
Mhm.
I just took a quick look at the clock and I'm like, we've talked about RPGs for half an hour or over half an
45
hour,
minutes.
45 minutes. But then
Yeah.
again, like I feel like if you've been tabletop gaming for any length of time, like you've got like all these stories of like,
Mm-hmm.
and
With
it's
the
always hard to relay those stories because it's like it was such a moment at the time.
mm,
But
yeah, it's definitely an example of you had to be there.
yeah, like it's like, oh, I can tell this great exalted story, but then it's gonna be like people listening will be like, well, that sounded like okay, fine, sure,
Yeah. Will people even have like context or
yeah,
any reason to any way of appreciating that? Someone else who's played Exalted will know when you say, "Oh, my guy, what do you call it? Jumped off a behemoth to
yeah,
then double backflip and use his Dieclave to take the head off of a Death Knight."
hmm
Someone who's played Exalted will know what you're talking about. Somebody who hasn't will go, "That's nice." Yeah. And even then, even if someone's played Exalted, not necessarily like
yeah,
even relaying the story to them loses a little bit of the punch.
yeah. Well, I find the big thing about Exalted, especially like I'm more familiar with second edition. I haven't looked at all at the third edition that came out. Not because I have an issue with it or anything, just it was a Kickstarter thing, and I kind of missed the train on it, and
Hmm.
just never ended up looking at it. And I think it's been a few years out now since it came out. But anyways,
It's been out for quite a bit actually, and they're still
yeah.
releasing books for it. Onyx Path still has yet to deliver on a bunch of the books they promised.
Oh, really?
Um, it's not a bad thing because it is a small team and they
Yeah,
are
like yeah, it's
consistently
gonna take
constantly
time. And I
working on it.
know like they were doing all this stuff for like the World of Darkness 20th anniversaries and everything like
Hmm.
that. So I wouldn't be surprised,
Yep.
especially like with all the like the real world supply chain issues. Like it probably got
Oh God.
further worse when
Yeah,
all that went down.
it got worse. COVID hit.
Yeah.
We got books like we got third edition core book. We got the Lunar's Fangs at the Gate, which was the lunar expansion. We eventually got the Abyssal expansion.
Hmm.
And now we're waiting on a lot of the other ones. Like for instance, they're promising sidereals. They're promising
Mm.
one of the biggest ones people have been waiting for, and it's probably the hardest one to develop, is the Exigent book.
Oh yeah, that's the oh that one looks so interesting.
Yeah, everybody wants to
Um,
know how they like because now for now Exigents basically run a lot like how you used to do Abyssals back in the day, and that is you took the
yeah.
solar charms and you just adapted them to
Yes,
whatever the flavor
it's like cherry blossoms now becomes little skeletons, or just like,
Yeah,
or the smell of
or
rot,
like
or
the Ash of the Dead
yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, so people are doing that with exigents mostly.
Mm,
People want to know how Onyx Path says you're supposed to do exigents, which
hmm
is going to be difficult to do because the way they put it is pick a minor god,
yeah.
their domain, their aspect, and that becomes your exalted aspect. It is
Hmm.
basically it's a book for making DIY
Yeah.
lesser exalted, who are specialized in a particular way. You have an exalted of masks, you have an
Yeah.
exalted of harvest, you have an exalted of blood, of poison, of luck. You have one
Yeah.
that actually rolls a d20 as an example in the book. And then
And
you
I
have other ones.
and I also
Go ahead.
remember reading like I think they were talking about like you have like some gods that are so minor that they basically kind of like give up themselves to
Mhm.
create a one
Oh yeah,
exalted mortal. So like in many respects you almost become that god because the god themselves gave up everything to
yeah.
create the one.
Because like
Yeah.
Yushan has three tiers of godhood, right?
Yeah.
You have the upper gods, which play their games, are constantly soaked into the incredibly addicting complacency
Hmm.
that playing those games has. So that's why gods basically abandoned creation
Hmm.
because they're sucked into some sort of uh, incredibly addictive
They're playing their gacha games up in heaven and it's
gambling
too
game.
addicting. They,
Basically,
they
yeah,
need
they
those waifu PNGs.
exactly they've been so sucked into their gotcha that they're neglecting. It's like a parent who's been sucked into a gambling game,
Hmm.
and their child has been left to basically raise themselves. And that's what creation is. You have the
Hmm.
middle gods in the middle tier, who are of some power, have access to Yushan. They can roam it, but they cannot live there, I believe.
Hmm.
Um, and they have some powers. Sometimes they have access to the games. Often they'll do deeds and favors for the greater gods, so that
Hmm.
they can take one action in the upper games, and then they will be back craving for more, willing to do basically anything for those upper gods, so they can have one more try at it. And then you have the lesser gods who are bound to creation. They tend to be, they could be anything from god of a mountain to god of a stream.
Yeah.
And yes, so the way that the exigence works, the flame of the exigence, is that the unconquered sun
Hmm.
is approached by a god to ascend a mortal.
Hmm.
The unconquered sun, if it is satisfied with the plea given, will
Hmm.
pass down its power and filter it through that god into the mortal, basically creating a solar exaltation that has been modified by the essence of that god.
Flavor.
Yes, lots of flavor time. Some minor gods can manage to do this and retain cohesion.
Yeah.
They sacrifice a great deal of their power. They are heavily demoted, but this is usually only done in times of crisis anyway.
Yeah.
The village they watch over is on threat of being exterminated by the
Yeah.
wild,
Yeah.
for instance.
Because if I recall
Um,
correctly, in the setting of Exalted, like the gods have their domain, but there's certain things they cannot affect. Because I know, like, say, the original
yeah,
reason Exaltation was created is that you had the top tier of gods that were basically slaves to, I think, the primordials. And it was like,
yep,
they cannot take action against the primordials, but they will empower
yeah,
mortals who will do it on their behalf, basically.
yeah. The we call it the primordials, who both made and are the founding building blocks of creation,
Hmm.
are inextricably part of creation.
Hmm.
If they die, creation dies with them.
Yeah.
The gods are created by and bound to the primordials, therefore they cannot act against them. They have certain rules that must stay within.
Hmm.
The exalted, in particular the solar exalted, were created to be able to do the impossible.
Yeah.
That is, the impossible things such as fighting against the primordials, killing them, binding them away. The ones they killed became the Neverborn, that is
Yep.
the Masters of the Abyssals and the
Woo.
Death Knights. And the ones they bound away and forever went insane, forever, what do you call it, bound into their one domain to the point where they reached total tunnel vision and complete insanity, is the Yozi.
Yeah. Which they feel like
Those are
the what's it called? The infernal abyssal? Not the infernal.
yes, they are the masters of the infernals and the demons.
Yeah.
And the whole way that demons work is funky as well because it's shards of shards of shards of Yozi.
Yes, yeah, because
Um,
like yeah, I recall that like from the Exalted game that I played in. Flora's character was an abyssal exalted and did a lot of like she had sorcery, but she didn't do necromancy, but she did the sorcery and had like demon summons, and she had like one
mm,
favored demon that she liked to call on, and I think he ended up like I don't want to say joining the party, but it was a blood ape that wore
mm.
sunglasses and a Hawaiian shirt because it was funny. And he ended up more or less being satisfied because we got into enough fights that he's like, yeah, I can chill out with you guys and not go crazy because you guys give me enough food when you do go to
Hmm.
town.
Yeah,
Um,
because
and
normally a Yosi of, say, like Malpheus, who's
mm,
a Yosi of destruction, um, a demon of Malpheus must destroy. That is their singular focus.
yeah,
Malpheus's aspect is destruction, and the same way that like an abyssal of an abyssal, an infernal of Malpheus must destroy.
mhm,
While an infernal can deviate in some ways if they go too long without satisfying that urge for destruction, they
mhm,
build torment.
yeah.
They start to explode, basically.
Ooh.
Though I will always say that one of the funniest things about infernals is their universal ability to bleed off torment by cackling and monologuing like an
Oh,
incredibly weird
I never
cartoon
saw
villain.
that. But I guess we never had like a dedicated book on infernals, so like we were more or less just running off what we had from I think the core book, and then
Mm. The
like the little bits
infernals
you get
in
in the other book. I think because Mal also
yeah.
had a book on the wild, so
Okay. But yeah, no, the infernals are the unapologetic villains, where
mhm.
um the abyssals are the corrupted fallen heroes,
Yeah.
much like fallen angels in that respect, and the solars are the redeemed insane tyrants.
Hmm.
The infernals are the ones who have soaked in the essence of a demon after falling to an extreme low point and failing.
Hmm.
Solars ascend on a moment of great triumph and willpower.
Hmm.
Infernals are approached by a demon after a great failure, where they
Mm.
tempt them with a devil's bargain. And then, if they accept, the demon slurps around them in a
Yee.
cocoon, where they are then they soak in the essence of the demon, and in effect part of the Yozi they are associated with, and they turn into the solar shard that was modified in the incredibly horrifying. If you get, actually, I'm gonna take that back. Don't look up how infernal shards are made.
Okay.
It's
Well, I
horrifying.
know,
It's
like, because there was the idea of the solar prison. Sorry, this is probably going
mhm.
to make chats like, "What are you guys doing? You're so
The
deep in the
Jade
weeds."
Prison, yes.
So yeah, there was more or less taking a step back. So there was the Solars. They were out about in creation. They were leading the Great Solar Deliberative. It was a big happy time, but over time, the Solars were cursed when they defeated the Primordials, and that curse
Hmm.
basically expressed itself as a very steadying insanity that crept in over time. And when it got
It's still around in the form of limit breaks.
yes, and it's still and they never got rid of it. So at a certain point, the insanity was so bad and so widespread among the solars that other types of solars, specifically the dragon-blooded, the terrestrials, as well as the sidereals,
Sidereal.
the star-based
They are the
exalted,
ones who
led
mastermind
a
everything.
rebellion and were like, "We can't. You guys can't rule anymore. You guys have lost it."
Which
And
is when every single solar down to a man was murdered.
yes. But the thing with solars is that it's not your soul when you die as a solar doesn't just fit into nothing. It is there's essentially when you have an exaltation, you almost end up with two souls. There's your mortal soul, but then there's the soul of the exaltation, the solar soul. And those that will just go to a new host as the exaltation passes along. So they ended up creating something called the Jade Prison, which basically caught all the souls as the Solars were killed to make sure that it didn't just move to a new host, because then you end
Yep.
up with the new problem.
They created a soul Alcatraz at the bottom of the ocean.
Yes. And then
And
at a certain point, at which is considered relatively close to the start of when you're making your campaigns, or that's the recommended kind of
oh,
starting timeline.
about 1,000 years after the fact,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, alliance was made between the Neverborn and the Yozi to basically go into the solar prison and basically steal the souls for themselves and corrupt them to make their chosen exalted. They were partially successful. The Yozi got some souls, the Abyssals got some souls, but then a whole bunch of solar souls just escaped and re-entered the cycle of reincarnation, and that's what's led to the opening, generally speaking, of the game, as well as the disappearance of the terrestrial Dragonblood Exalted kind of took over control of the world because the Sidereals prefer to operate in the background, and the Scarlet Empress, the leader of that faction, she's also disappeared.
And guess where she is?
I think she's with
She's
the
still
Yozi, isn't she?
she's married to the Umbral Dragon.
Yeah, yeah. I remember it was one of those things when when it came out because I remember it being a whole thing about like the ink monkeys or something like that. Like there was like a whole big of concerns about at a certain point about plot being derailed. I don't know. I to some
Oh,
degree I
the
don't follow that stuff.
tapestry spiders.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, fucking tapestry spiders. Um, yeah, so she's like in the book of the broken winged crane, I believe it was,
Mm.
which is supposedly a book that was authored by the Scarlet Empress sometime in the future. And as it draws closer and closer to being finished written, that's when it's supposed to usher in what's basically the second coming of the Empress and the Yozi.
Oh. Uh-oh.
And it's also a book that is details a lot of infernal martial arts and things like that, as well as
Oh.
the how to follow through on the Howl of the Devil Tiger, which is one of my brother's favorite things. He loves playing infernals.
Mm.
The Howl of the Devil Tiger is this whole different thing that allows you to break off. So there she blows Ishmael.
Hello, Ishmael. I'm sorry you still don't have power. Yeah,
Yikes.
there was a big storm that ran through this province and another province, and
Oof.
it was basically a hurricane, and but not hurricane season. Like it only lasted about 20 minutes, but like it tore down trees. It did a
We have
lot of
that sometimes
damage.
here. We get tornadoes come through here sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think there was.
Uh,
I don't think we had a lot of tornadoes. It was just that level of winds. I think.
just gale force winds.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hmm.
Howl of the Devil Tiger is an interesting thing. It's a series of charms you take. I think it's starting at Essence 6 if you're an Infernal.
Oh wow.
It allows you to eventually break your shackles from a Yozi and start making your own charms.
Mm.
Eventually, having all the power of it once you reach Essence 10, having all the power of a Yozi, but none of the restrictions. Just and specifically none of the mania that makes you focus on a single aspect of
Gotcha.
existence.
So you don't have to monologue if you don't want to monologue.
Well, no, you still have torment that you built up
Fair
based on
enough.
your own rules. So you set your own rules on what is your fixation,
Gotcha.
but you can make it much more broad, and you can set your own terms for how you bleed it off.
Gotcha.
Which
Gotcha.
also means if you reach that point, you can what do you call it? Reach a point where you don't have to be a mad bastard or a total dick to everybody. You can just set your own terms.
Yeah, you can kind of, I
Um,
guess, move. I don't want to call it like lawful evil, but that kind of like, I'm a selfish asshole and I'm going to do what's best for me, but I'm
but
not
I'm
going to like massacre this
go out of my
village
way
because
to
it serves my needs to have this village continue existing.
yeah, that's much more along the lines of lawful evil.
Yeah.
Like what do you call it? The weak can rule the strong. They can give them direction. They don't necessarily need to massacre them and
The
butcher
SMT
them into
chaos
becoming
path.
exactly. Although I think that SMT Chaos Path tends to swing back and forth from lawful evil to
Mm.
chaotic evil. Because
Yeah,
if you go like SMT3, that's just straight up chaotic evil.
yeah.
Demons everywhere, strong rule the weak. If you're hungry, eat. If you're tired, sleep.
Yeah.
If you want to murder somebody, you murder.
Yeah. Yeah, I think SMT4 went more in the direction of like the quote unquote lawful evil. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Like SMT4, the true path, I believe, was the neutral one, whereas the
Yeah.
SMT3 was very much the demon king one.
Yeah. Well,
The
Nocturne was very much, especially like with the what was it called, the Maniacs edition, where
yeah.
it was like go kill the devil, go kill Lucifer. That's the real ending, and
Mhm.
kill all these devils along the way. Get that candelabra lit.
Yeah, finish the labyrinth, kill the
Yeah.
fiends. Also pick up Dante somewhere along the ways because fuck it.
I have that edition of the game. With the
I
with
do
the
too.
sticker that says like not with Dante from Devil May Cry. It's like I have the meme.
Yes, I have them. Me and my brother picked it up way back when I was a youngin, and
Yeah.
he's we've held on to that box
Yeah.
for a long time.
Like I'm tempted to get the Switch port if only because it's like it's got a different character. It's got well, you can get either character, but I think it by default has Raido Kuzunaha. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. The Devil Summoner character that
from number two?
they had to sub in when they lost the rights to Dante, and I think they made Dante DLC or something.
Raido Kuzunoha, yeah.
Thank you.
He's from Devil Summoner 2. He's the one with the really cool outfit and cape. And
Yeah, the
hat.
very Imperial Japan style, which funnily enough means that game doesn't get released in certain countries.
Yeah, because certain countries don't want to look back on that time.
Yeah. Like it's one of those things where it's like it's historically accurate and they're not doing that story, but I get why they don't want why some countries are just like no, that imagery is just too like it's like it was a lot of games like I know like with the Persona 2 for the longest time, it struggled to get a localization for the first game, Innocent Sin, because it has literal Hitler in it.
Yep, yep. You had Hitler come back as a demon.
So, I mean, it's not like it's a positive portrayal, but they were like, oh, we can't fucking localize this. It's got Hitler in
Considering,
it.
because like spoiler, but it's because it was Nyarlathotep disguised
Mm.
as Hitler.
Yes, yeah.
So it's two awful creatures coming back, and you kill them.
Hmm.
But still, yeah. Up until recently, that would have never flown here in Germany.
Yeah.
We were very, very militant, like ironically enough, about things like depicting swastikas up until like 2018, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Because I remember when South Park: The Stick of Truth came out.
Oh, okay, and that's got.
I
I'm
remember,
pretty sure that's got the Iger nominated because
oh yeah,
they'll
it
they'll
had
put
those.
everything in it for shock value.
Yeah, they had those Nazi zombies.
Mm.
You had the people who come back to life with a swastika armband and start shouting literal sound clips from Hitler's speeches.
Oh my god.
And yeah, no. In the German version, the armbands are blacked out
Mm.
and the voice clips are removed. Instead, you just have people giving like these Nazi zombies giving very limp "Guten Tag" and
Mm.
"Schönen Morgen" and things like that.
Yeah, I seem to recall SMT or Persona 2. I think they eventually translated it as. I think they just call him the Führer.
Yeah,
They
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 just call
they
them
they
the
they,
Führer.
they basically do everything to dance around who it is.
Yeah.
But
Um, Thankfully now though, I think it was in 2018 because I remember when Fractured Butthole came out.
okay,
Um,
sorry.
it said fractured but whole
Yes,
because Butwhole, but
but we
everybody
know
knows
what they
what they're
meant.
actually trying to say. Yes, it's butthole. Um, when I played that, all references to Nazi stuff was uncensored, and that's because
Mm.
recently, about a year before that, 2017, I
Mm.
believe, a redaction to the rule was made so that you can now publish material here in Germany
Mhm.
with Nazi insignias and Third Reich stuff in reference to that, so long as it is instructive,
Mm.
satirical, or transformative. You may not
Gotcha.
simply air Hitler's speeches just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
There needs to be a point to it. And because South Park is satirical by nature,
Yeah.
it finally flew through. So we managed to eventually get a version of The Stick of Truth that was uncensored and purchasable here.
Okay. Okay.
So Germany's become a bit more lax on it. Nobody's allowed to go flying banners with swastikas out the windows yet, but
No, they do that here instead at fucking truck rallies. Sorry. Whoops.
go on.
Probably
Go
shouldn't.
on.
Probably shouldn't go into that right now.
Uh, like if we want to talk politics, I get in fights with
Probably not a
neo
good
Nazis
idea.
outside the train station sometimes. Yeah, we have the issue here. A big mission statement of the Department of Education here is that if we are allowed to forget the past, history is doomed to repeat itself.
Yes, I
So
agree with that very much. Yeah.
all the way through middle school to high school, year after year, I had stuff about Nazi Germany and the Third Reich
Yeah.
drummed into my head in history class. It brought up every year because the
Mhm.
Department of Education does not want the youth to forget about what happened because we
Mm.
are reaching the point where all the survivors of that incident are slowly reaching their life's end.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember not too long ago there was a big thing on like the news and there was like a ceremony in Ottawa because one of the oldest veterans from World War II was I think they hit
Mhm.
their 100th birthday or something like that. And like they were like 18. Like they were basically like they basically like signed up. They turned 18 during World War II and were not present for
Mm.
the whole thing. Like they joined I think towards the end, like I think like 1943 or 1944. And yeah, like there's not a lot of people who were actually there for it. I think at this point are mostly have passed away by this point or what have you.
Uh, Recently, a good friend of mine, some people may know about him. I was very surprised when a couple of my friends actually knew about him. His name is Gail Halverson,
Okay.
also known as Uncle Wiggly Wings or the Candy Bomber. He was a figure who's basically legendary here in Germany,
Oh
particularly in
wow.
Berlin, because during the time of when the wall was up, go figure, the city was starved for resources. The Everything was recycled, nothing was wasted.
Mm-hmm.
You were stuck waiting 20 years in line for a Trabant, which is basically a plastic shell on an aluminum chassis with a lawnmower engine. If you know what, do you know what a Trabant is?
No, I'm
It's
sorry.
this tiny, tiny. No, it's fine. It's part of German history. I wouldn't expect you to know it. Um, a Trabant is this tiny, tiny little car
Mm.
with like a 40 cc engine, which is about the power of a typical like benzene lawnmower.
Oh, okay.
It has a
It's like a
plastic
golf
outer
cart.
shell. Yeah. And it has an aluminum chassis.
Hmm.
Held the shell outside. Sometimes it's just cardboard with a thin layer of plastic on the outside. Even
Hmm.
crumbles like a tin can if hit. Which is why a lot of people use it as a percussion instrument.
Oh.
It's sometimes there's music videos of German artists using them as like drums sometimes for
Nice.
set pieces in music videos. It's fun. They are a iconic part of German history.
Yeah. I'll admit my
Um,
exposure to German music is predominantly Rammstein and
I
Lord of
was
the Lost.
say that, but yeah, the during the time when the wall was up, resources were very scarce.
Yeah.
People got like a bar of chocolate a month to split between the whole family
Oh my God.
as part of the rations. Um, so during deployment, Gail Halverson, he was landing at at the Tempelhof Airport, which is the used to be the big airport. It's what they used to fly the jets out of,
Okay.
and when deploying during Second World War. This is now on the American occupied side of Berlin.
Mm.
He noticed a bunch of kids lining up at the fence on the East German side, watching all the American pilots and military men unload and talk to one another.
Hmm.
Yes, the Luftbrücke, the Luftbrücke, as we
Oh.
say, the lift. Um, he noticed the kids watching, and when he went up to the fence, I forget exactly how it goes, but they pretty much just asked him to if he could spare some of the gum he was having, or if
Mm.
they could have the wrapper.
Okay.
When they asked him if he could spare some gum, he only had or some candy. He only had a stick of gum on him,
Mm.
a stick of simple mint gum,
Hmm.
and he would tear it up and he would share it between the kids in little strips, which they were already grateful for. And when he ran out of gum and the rest of the kids were left with nothing, they just asked if they could have a strip of the paper so they could smell it.
Mm.
Because most of these kids didn't get anything like very sugary or any treats or candy
Yeah.
ever. The chocolate they got as part of the ration was mostly unsweetened. It was just milk chocolate with very little sugar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, he said basically he decided he wanted to do something about this a while later after some time to think it over. Um, After a few more flights back and forth, because there was something like 4 flights a day coming back and forth, but there was like 4 flights per hour delivering supplies to Berlin because it was walled off,
Yeah.
and they were very short on
And you
supplies.
can't send like big things because you don't want it to look like a declaration of war or something's coming. So you have to
Well,
like keep your
yeah, I mean
supply routes normally.
they had a constant supply chain, a cycle of
Hmm.
planes coming in delivering like cargo planes, not like bombers or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they were basically repurposed bombers.
Hmm.
Um, they were bringing like large crates of necessary supplies. What he would do is when he was coming on the flight with his squadron, um, is he would come with his pockets full of candy and he would hand them out at the fence. Uh, yeah, yeah, because people were fleeing to Austria, and they
Hmm.
were bleeding numbers, which is what they put the wall up, and that's why they
Yeah.
were starved for resources.
Hmm.
Um, so after a little more of this, he noticed that there were so many other kids in Berlin not getting any of this. So many kids kept coming to the fence that eventually his pockets wouldn't be big enough to hold enough candy to give to all of them.
Hmm.
So what he did was he said, "Watch for the wiggly wings." And when he would come flying by, he sorted out this ingenious, simple method of delivering the candy. And so he would make a flight over the walled-off East German part,
Hmm.
um, and he would take little parcels full of candy. You put a stick of gum, a bit of Hershey's chocolate,
Hmm.
all different kinds of American candy. Put in a little parcel. With a bit of twine, he would tie it to a napkin as a
Aw.
parachute, and then he would push them out the back of the cargo hatch when it was open,
It's a very
and it would
adorable
come.
image, by the way.
Yes,
Just like
it would,
these
it would
little
come raining
parachutes of
down.
candy. Sorry.
It was incredibly wholesome. We have
Hmm.
picture books and stories all like detailing all this, and it would come parachute. Kids would come running out of like all over the neighborhoods, especially on Zunallee, which is a big street that ran across the border on the
Hmm.
not Czechoslovakia, but it was a big street that ran parallel to the wall when it was up. Kids would come running in from all over the neighborhood to get a piece of candy. Of course, the larger kids would always have
Advantage.
they had the height advantage. Many of the younger kids wouldn't get their stuff. And so he did this. He started bombing the city with candy. Um, Eventually, the rest of his rest of his pilot friends um, got in on it. They would help him assemble the care packages, help him push it out. Eventually, it became a whole thing, and more kids would get in on it. They loved the hell out of him. They started calling him Uncle Wiggly Wings,
Ah.
or the Candy Bomber.
Mm.
Um, and eventually, a young girl by the name of Mercedes wrote to him because whenever she went out to the street, the taller boys and girls would always snatch the candy first, and they'd
Oh
be
no,
faster than her.
she never got any. Oh.
She was always like, she was very young at the time. She was very
Yeah.
small. So she wrote to them and said, "Dear Uncle Wiggly Wings, I can never get any of the candy. Can you please drop some to the house with the chickens in the backyard?"
Mm.
Because they had a little chicken coop. Problem is, a lot of the houses in East Berlin had chicken coops because
Mm-hmm.
it was one of the few types of livestock that the state wouldn't demand a tithe from if you
Oh,
had some.
okay. Yeah.
If you had more than like two chickens, I believe, they would start asking for or demanding the eggs you would produce
Oh,
so they could
geez.
pass it on to other people
Mm-hmm.
because it was still a communist bloc. They
Yeah.
would repurpose and claim what you produce to pass them around to others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Eventually, he would try to look out, but there was too many houses with coops in the backyard. Uh, I forget how the rest of the story goes, but eventually, the two would meet when the wall came down when they were
Okay.
older, um, and they were still good friends for a long time. I got to meet them in elementary school when they came for a talk
Oh
at my
wow.
school. I got to meet both of them, and they both hugged and greeted each other like old friends. It was great to see.
Aw, that's so nice.
And yeah, and eventually I actually got to get to know him a little bit better because I was part of the Boy Scout troop
Mm.
at the in Berlin, and we would get to know him. We would go to the Luftbrücke Memorial. Um, every year there was a memorial service for the pilots and for everybody else, for the military and for the Air Force that were shot down and lost
Mm.
and who did their bit. There I would get to know him better. And yeah, he's a good friend of mine. And recently, it's been a few years now, he passed away.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
All this winding around to your point of, yeah, we're slowly starting to lose a lot of the people who were fundamental. Even someone who was mostly active during what was tentatively considered the Cold War,
yeah.
even if it was towards the end of it. We're starting to lose a lot of these people who lived the history, and we're now going into mostly generations of people who who were not around for that. You
Yeah,
think
like
of
it's all like
the women in
secondhand
Vietnam.
stuff. Like, and even then,
Yeah.
like for me, like it's even a further degree removed because, like, say for instance, my grandparents were the ones who fought in World War II. My parents are basically have like the stories and everything from it. Or even then, like to some degree, not a lot because both grandfathers, both on my father's side and my mother's side, neither wanted to talk about the war when they got
Mm.
back. So I have very little information, and unfortunately, like one of my grandfathers passed away before I was even born, so I never got
Mm.
any information really because he didn't talk about it before his passing, and his kids didn't, you know, my father and his siblings didn't have any information. And then on um, my mother's side, he never talked about it either, and he largely didn't see combat because he
Mm.
was going through flight training to be because you had to go through all the math learning because he was going to be a bomber, like to calculate where to put the bombs basically. So you had to like calculate like the wind and everything. You didn't have computers
Got it.
and shit. So they're like anyone who has a certain level of intelligence or not intelligence, but like anyone who has a certain level of kind of like skills that are kind of like when they do the aptitude test or whatever, they're like, congratulations, you're now calculating bombs and we're going to do
Mhm.
all this training. And I think he didn't see actually a lot of combat as a result because he wasn't fully trained up, I think, by the time the war ended.
Mm. Yeah, and my grandfather on my mom's side also passed away before I managed to get to know him.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was very young when he passed. He was also Air Force,
Mm.
um, though I believe he was mostly reconnaissance. I don't remember. We didn't see a lot of combat either. My grandfather, my grandmother, before she passed away, she grew up in Guernsey, a little island that's part of the Commonwealth. Um, she spent a lot of time with her father, my great grandfather, fishing
Mm,
bodies out of the water, which is a great way to grow up. I can tell you that much.
mm.
Um, but yeah, her father was Coast Guard search and rescue,
Oh,
so
wow.
she, because they were short on hands, um, she spent a lot of time helping him because she was an able body.
Hmm.
Also, nymphs don't catch a cold. Uh, so she spent a lot of her like teenage years helping him fish waterlogged bodies out of the water around Guernsey, around
Oh,
the
wow.
island, because there was just that much death during
Yeah.
the time. This is after already going through a ton of shit on her side. You know that that saying people say, don't swing a stick around or you poke somebody's eye out.
Yes.
My grandmother ended up growing up with a glass eye from like the age of 7 because her brothers didn't listen.
Oof.
They were
I
playing around in
mean,
the
to
backyard,
be
and she ended up, yeah.
to be fair, I don't know if I've mentioned this before too much. Like I talk about it a little bit, but my I am blind in one eye, and it
Mm,
wasn't a stick that got me in the eye, but it was unfortunately like it was one of those things where like I joke like a one must have been rolled because like I wear glasses when I'm not on stream.
mm,
I was like it was like it had to be like and also like it hit me like right at the corner of my eye. So it was like one of
mm.
those things where it's like there had to be like so many like bad rolls
There just had to
to
be so many
because it's like
coincidences that
because
really,
yeah because it, like it should have by all rights it should have hit my glasses, it should have hit me on the eyebrow, it should have done all those things, but it didn't. And yeah, this the unfortunate damage as a result. There was they were able to put it all back together, but my retina was really badly scarred,
mm.
so the retina detached as a result, and that's why I don't see out of that eye anymore. But I still like I don't have a glass eye. I still have my actual eye. It just doesn't work. But yeah, like definitely that piece of advice very much resonates with me.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Yes, Kitchen, that's correct. That's why one eye is covered on my model. That's the bad eye. It doesn't track evenly with my good eye, so I just cover it up.
well, I'm sure it's beautiful regardless.
No, it's not. It's covered in scar tissue.
Eh, scars are beautiful too.
It's character at least.
It's character. I say this as a person who is riddled with scars.
Mm,
I've got, oh yes, childhood war story. I want
mm,
to break this one out. People always wonder how the fuck I survived this. So when I was very young, my brother aggravated me. This was at one of my father's birthday parties,
mm,
by the way. So this is a great birthday gift for him. We had company over.
mhm.
My brother aggravated the absolute hell out of me, as older brothers do.
Yes, I have a
Uh,
sister. Yes.
yes, elder siblings. Fuck
Oh
them.
no, I'm the
Uh,
older sibling. I'm the shit.
yeah. You just went from a 10 to a 9.
I'm sorry.
So he aggravated the hell out of me. I ended up chasing him up the stairs in our old house.
Hmm.
Now, German building code is a weird thing. It is arcane and hard to puzzle.
Hmm.
But one of the things we found out after the incident is that they privately owned property. There's basically no rules besides the fact that you have to have 4 walls, a floor, and a roof. Public let property, so rentables, have to follow a strict set of building codes, including using safety glass, using no asbestos whatsoever, um, so on and so forth. Yeah, there's some very rigorous rules. We
Hmm.
bought my family bought a 2-story small house that we were technically renting,
Mm.
but it was a privately owned property that that we were leasing from the property owner.
Yeah, you're not like leasing from like a holding company or whatever. You're leasing from.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
So the building was spec for private ownership
Mm.
and was built by a private owner, by a single person. Well,
Hmm.
was commissioned by a single person.
Gotcha.
I chased him up the stairs, went after him, went, yeah. So the bathroom, he ran into the take care, Ishmael. Sorry, she
Yeah,
noticed.
I hope you get power back soon. I'm sorry, it's going to be another few days, Ishmael. Bye.
So the he ran into the bathroom.
Mhm.
The bathroom door had a window in it. It was this sort of like bumpy glass, You know what I mean? It's sort of like
Oh
it's
yeah, like
really
it's that textured glass that kind of like keeps
yeah,
it from like it makes it kind of privacy glass. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
hard to see into. It's not like fogged
Yeah.
or what do you call it? Like frosted,
Hmm.
but instead it's just ripply.
Yeah.
Um, turns out that was real glass
Oh no.
rather than safety glass like it should have. It should have broke up into
Oh, cause
tiny
yeah,
little
like
pieces.
I know what you mean. Like that instead of breaking into like actual pieces, it breaks into like little crumbs almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's made to break into small cubes rather than shards.
Hmm.
So my brother swung the door shut as he was laughing, and I went to go punch him. And even
Oh
very
no.
young, I had a mean right hook, and with a combined effort, I was left there with my fist thoroughly through the glass, hanging
Oh
over the
no.
bottom of the window. I only, only after my mother told me later that I had a massive shard of glass poking up from the bottom, about an inch from my stomach, and nearly disemboweled myself.
Oh my god.
But the real issue was uh, that anybody can tell you that if you go jumping through a window, you're going to be diced to pieces.
Yeah. You have to break
Well,
the.
my
You
arm,
can't you can't break the glass as you're going through. You have to break the glass first.
yeah, doesn't matter what you do, it's going to cut you to ribbons.
Yeah.
My arm was no exception.
Oh no.
Now, there were overall very few smaller cuts, but there was one that went from my wrist in the very center
Hmm.
all the way down my forearm up to my armpit. And no
Mm.
7-year-old should have to see their tibia.
Oof. Oh no.
Yeah. Uh, it's a miracle there was no glass in the wound. There
Mm.
was blood everywhere. Wonderful time. A
Oh, I
wonderful
bet.
gift to my father.
Oof.
Uh, one of my last memories as I faded out of consciousness, besides having my arm wrapped up in towels as a make-do bandage,
Hmm.
was one of the guests grabbing my brother as they pulled him carefully out of the bathroom. Um, one of the guests, as my brother was kind of like put to the side, and he was like 12 at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like took him by the shoulder and was like, with the other hand, like put his centered his head towards me as they went like, look at what happened. Which whoever
I.
that lady was, fuck her,
Yeah. Like you don't
because
like kids
he ended
don't
up
understand
fainting.
that stuff. Yeah. Like that was
Yeah,
not.
he ended up fainting and hitting his head. He got a
Oh.
concussion because of that.
Oh no.
Yeah, at the very least, as a brother and as any brother will tell you, they may hate each other, but they will still die for each other.
Hmm.
As long as
As
conditional.
long as it hasn't the relationship hasn't actually turned toxic. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
But I would die for my brother and I would kill for my brother as much as we give each other shit, and I would protect him.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of grateful that I'm the one who went through that much harm, though I'm sure he still kind of blames himself.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
like anything like that, like say for instance like the accident that happened to me, like you don't like when that stuff happens, it's not like it's just like a like the bad cascade of ones for lack of a better
yeah,
term. It's not no you don't go out thinking I'm going to do this and then my brother's going to stick his fist through the glass and he's going to need stitches. Like that's
yeah.
not the thought train at all.
I think somewhere deep in our minds we are programmed to try and find fault with either ourselves or others.
Mm.
That's because we are programmed to seek patterns in everything,
Yeah.
and we try to find a pattern so we can make sense of stuff,
Mhm.
and inevitably that means we have to try and trace it back to someone, whether it's ourselves or
Yeah,
someone
like
else.
well, I think that's a very common impulse to be like, if I can ascribe a fault, if I can figure out the chain of events or what have you, then this won't
Things will be
happen again, or I can prevent this, I can control this.
yeah.
And I mean,
That's
if you could
because if
control
it's
the
just if
universe,
it's
hey, let me know.
yeah, but yeah, it's a basic impulse
Yeah.
because by garnering understanding, that both eases our own anxiety
Hmm.
and lets us avoid it in the future,
Yeah.
because the unknown. This is getting very bordering very much on like pseudo philosophy here, but um, the unknown and the inscrutable scares the living hell out of us.
Mm-hmm.
If something is left entirely to chance and we have no method of preventing or controlling it,
Hmm.
that terrifies our little lizard brains.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that's why a lot of tabletop RPGs end up being so engaging. Is
yes,
because it's very much this is a world I can control that I have a clear set of rules about how to engage with and about the causes and
Mhm.
like you're not necessarily going to completely spoil it on the plot or what have you, but there's like that
Yeah.
at least like through line of I did this and then this happened and then I
Yeah.
paid for this action 3 sessions down when the murder hobo came after me.
Yeah. And then you know, there's also the fact that whenever something uh, horrible or unsightly happens, we always have the dice to blame it on.
Yeah.
If we have an actual agent of total chaos and randomness, we can blame the matters of happenstance on. When our character stumbles, they fall forward, the gun goes off, and they accidentally shoot their friend in the
Yeah, it's
ass.
like don't blame
That
me,
was the
blame the
dice.
one. I didn't do
Yeah,
that.
that was a D20. In character, the other player, like the character, may get reamed for not practicing proper trigger safety, but out of character, nobody thinks there was any animosity or fault.
Yeah.
Just someone rolled a 1.
I think it's telling that you have things like I recall seeing it like a lot of stores have things called dice jails, where it's like and
Yes.
I mean I've done it myself where it's like I've rolled when a dice is on a bad streak and you're just like this dice is done for tonight. Just put that over here. I get another D20 or I get another set of D10s. Just not that dice,
Mhm.
no more.
It's
You
a neat
stay over
little
there and
bit of
think about what you did.
it's a neat little bit of superstition that's built up in the tabletop
And it's
community.
funny,
It's
I'm
just
not
that
otherwise
dice might have
superstitious.
personalities. Yeah, like dice might have personalities or
Yeah.
leanings, or it's like how the bubbles align on the inside, or how it's.
Mhm.
Have you seen that Zbashu video?
I've seen some.
Uh,
I don't know if I've seen the one you're talking about. I've seen a lot of his other stuff where he talks about like this is a spell. Here's how you could maybe consider using the spell, or here's something interesting, and maybe in applications of it or things like that. But
mhm.
I don't know if I've seen the
But
specific one you
yeah,
might be talking about.
he has one that's a video on dice personalities and how to tell which
Oh,
one is which.
yes, I remember seeing that. Oh, I don't. Like my brain is like you've seen this, but it's like if you ask me to quote anything from it, my brain is like
Mm.
no.
I can't really quote much from it either, besides the fact that he ends the video by going, and so this is how this is how you know all the different types of dice and also what they say about their owner.
Mm.
And also the fact that and then there's um, this might say this die type might say this about you, might say this about you, or it might just say that people are strange for ascribing personalities and personification to a lump of plastic that just rolls along on the table. Um, just kind of lampshading the silliness of kind of like basically horoscope style assigning tendencies and personalities
Yeah.
to otherwise completely irrelevant materials.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember reading this one thread on Twitter. I follow a lot of dice makers on Twitter, which is a bit of a problem because I have no impulse control sometimes when it comes to shopping, especially if
Oh,
I'm not in a good mood. And
oh,
anyways,
you have
so
you
one
got
of
the
the
inner dice
maker
goblin. Yes.
so one of the makers posted a lovely dice set and it was actually like a ship in a dice and a d20. It was gorgeous. Like it was, I think, more meant as
Oh,
like a display piece. Like they're like, you can roll it if you want to. There's no harm in doing so, but really, that's what you've got a ship in a dice. Are you that? Is that really what you're gonna do with it? That's why you just put out on the, you put out on the coffee table. And you're like, look at this dice. I have trapped a
mm,
ship within. Anyways, um, and someone started messaging about like, can you tell me about the balance of this dice? And it's like, why?
who cares?
Who cares?
It's a boat in a
It's a
die.
boat and a die. And also, like,
It's like
in the
it's
grand
like
scheme of things, like, are you really going to be rolling this dice often enough to discern whatever bias it may or may not hold? Like a lot of like resin dice makers apparently deal with this complaint of like, how balanced are your dice when you put leaves or when you put things in it? And it's like, not enough to matter when you've rolled it over several hundred
mhm.
times.
That's it's like it's like having a mosquito trapped in amber and going like, how much can I sell the amber for?
Mm.
Like, why would you why would you worry about that? Like or like how are you sure about the blood type that's inside the mosquito? It's like, who
Yeah.
gives a damn? Look at this piece. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's like a moment trapped in time.
Yeah, like I haven't been able to yet. I mean, I probably could if I made a dedicated search for it, but I do like to collect a lot of like geological rock pieces. People
Yeah, keep
who
mentioning
frequent our streams generally know that I freak out over geodes
mm,
quite
mm,
often. And I haven't yet been able to really get any good amber-based pieces with something. Like I found pieces of amber, but there's usually nothing inside. So that
Mhm.
generally like hasn't grabbed me, I guess is the right way to put it when I've seen them. And I think it largely has to do with like where you can source them from, because like generally speaking, in my area, we do have some natural rock deposits. Like a lot of amethyst, actually, oddly enough, can be sourced relatively close to me, as well as some other rocks. So like I can usually kind of get those relatively easily, but you have to kind of go more towards um, the prairies if you want to get anywhere near like the fossilized stuff.
Mm.
So
Like here, we actually have a fairly consistent source of amber,
mm.
especially further up north along the beach. There's a
Ooh.
beach along the Ostsee, the East Sea,
Hmm.
um, which is known for having small lumps of amber sometimes in the sand. You'll have people who
Oh,
go up there
nice.
during the summer to actually hunt along the beach looking for pieces of amber.
Mm.
Most of it's gone by now because people
Yeah.
have picked it all out. But every once in a, once every now and again, a little bit will wash up onto the shore and
Mm.
get picked up. Usually, it's not a lump big enough for making dice out of or something like that, or
Yeah.
making a spin piece, but it's a little piece you can take to home as a memento. More often than not, you'll just find like a stall near the beaches or multiple stalls selling amber. This,
Mm.
you know, whether or not it's actually this will usually be somewhere towards the Poland side of things
Okay.
rather than on the German beaches,
Hmm.
um, where they'll be selling you amber, and there's like about a 50-50 chance it's actually amber, and even less chances it's actually amber gotten from that beach.
Yeah, I mean that I get that frustration a bit myself where it's like I'm trying to like source some stuff and they're just like, "Oh, this is amethyst, but it's not Ontario amethyst. It's sourced from here," which does I mean like it's still nice looking. I'm not saying it
Mm-hmm.
isn't, but like sometimes like if I'm traveling to a specific region, it's because I want stuff sourced from that region, not because like if I want to get amethyst from a different location, maybe if I get the opportunity, I'll travel to that location, but if I'm if I'm going to a specific like, there's actually like a few mines you can go to for like tours and stuff like that. I was looking into. Not, I unfortunately I found them during the COVID time, so it's like I'm not
Oh yeah,
traveling right now, but kind of like looking into. But
put into the
it's
nice big book of wanna do.
yeah, basically, put that along with the trip to Japan and the trip to New Zealand, so I can see the hobbitses and things like that.
Mm-hmm. God, I still want to go back to Japan at some point.
I haven't been able to go. Though I am addicted to like Japan travel videos, being like, oh, if you go here, you
Hmm.
can get this, or if you go here, you go this. So if I ever go, I'll be super prepared, or maybe not. I don't know, but
You'll have an idea of your itinerary at least.
yeah.
Make sure one thing I can recommend is depending on how long you want to go, don't
Hmm.
go for too long because you will just get you'll get tired, you'll get fatigued,
Yeah.
you'll lose motivation to go out places. I recommend somewhere like a week to because it's an expensive trip. You want to make the most of it and
Yeah.
get as much time there comfortably as you can.
Hmm.
No more than 2 weeks.
Yeah,
That's all I
I don't
recommend.
think I would go. Like one, I don't think I could get that much time, anything more than 2 weeks off from my
Sure.
job.
Fair enough.
Like as it was, like I'm off this week, which is why I was able to do this stream today at this time. I'm normally
Hmm.
very much limited to an evening streamer or evening for my time zone.
Hmm.
And like even this week, like on Thursday and Wednesday, like I was talking to coworkers and I'm like, I'm off next week, but they're like, wait, what? You're off, but these things need to get done. And I'm like, well, they're waiting till I get back or you do them yourselves. And it's just, I don't know if it's a bad habit of mine that I'm too available or whatever, but just it was a lot of like, you don't take time off. And it's like, but
Yeah.
I need it.
Yeah. Yeah. Here in Germany, they're a little more liberal with time off, but
Yeah.
they're still strict about fulfilling your work hours. A lot of
Yes. Yeah.
companies do time in lieu,
Yes.
where like if you do overtime, you then get that in terms in vacation hours instead of
Yeah.
extra pay. So they're much more free with allowing you to take days off, but they're not. You still need to fulfill your monthly hours, or they will fire you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Slightly different. It's also they took their model, I think, at least partially from many Japanese models actually.
Okay.
I know a lot of companies over here in Germany were trying to adopt the 5S system.
The
Um,
5S?
5S. Let me look that up because it's where the term "say so" comes from.
Oh.
5S, the 5S method. Here we go. Uh, find S method. Japanese. Seiri, Seiton, Seiso, Seikatsu, and Shitsuke,
Oh.
which means sort, set in order, shine, Seisos, shine,
Oh.
standardize, sustain. It is a series, it's a workflow, circular workflow for how
Okay.
you organize a workplace to make it safe, clean, efficient, um, and presentable,
Okay. Okay.
as well as sustainable.
Mm.
And it's very common over in Japan. Very rigorous, very much relies on the fact that everybody's going to do their part in the workplace.
Okay.
Doesn't work very well in workplaces that are kind of like a little more lax, a little more go as you may.
Mm-hmm. Like you have to have
It's
like something that's a fairly, I don't want to call it rigid, but like if you've got an entrepreneur or like maybe like, a small ice cream shop where you've got like 3 employees, I doubt this method is going
yeah,
to be
no,
implementable.
it's more meant for like office spaces or factory floors,
Yeah.
which is of course far more common in Japan.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, Japan's a great place to go. It's great to visit, not so great to live if you're a foreigner.
Yeah, I mean a lot of the, like, because I don't, I watch like Sea Dog VA, or I see like
Mm,
Abroad in Japan with Chris or things like that, and like yeah, like you do very much get the impression where it's like I don't think I would be happy living there, like also because I find and I've observed this here because like say for instance when I went to to university or education things like that, I was living in the big city and things like that, and it's just I'm not suited for that kind of like high
me
density
neither. I hated it.
thing. Yeah, like it's like it's convenient in some respects because like you have easy access to things, but on the other hand, it's like I miss the green spaces. I miss the ability to
Same,
kind of
same.
be by myself if I need to.
Which is why I like living out where I am,
Yeah.
doing my job because it gets me out. It's it keeps me fit.
Hmm.
It puts me out in nature, even if the pollen during summer kills the ever loving hell out of me.
Oh no.
Um, yeah, no, I perfectly understand. That is exactly my position on it.
Yeah, like
Um,
I find though like I don't want to be too out into like the wilderness because like one I want to be near friends and family and things like that, but also I need my high speed internet, which
mm,
the
mm,
more, especially in Canada, the more rural you get, um, the harder it is to get any kind of reliable internet. The part of that being is a geological feature called the Canadian Shield. Um, which is the more north you go in Ontario into sections of Quebec as well as Winnipeg, it's like this whole thing. It's all rock, and it's like it's very deep down, which is why there's a lot of mining stuff because there's rock to mine. But the result is that it is hard to put in infrastructure. You can't put cabling in easily, especially underground based cabling. So you usually have to like a lot of like reception in that area is actually satellite based. Like I don't know if it's
mm.
still the case, but like Canada has one of the highest amounts of satellites above in its orbit in space or low orbit. And the idea is that
Mhm.
strictly the satellites are boosters to get signals out
Yeah,
to the areas where
uh,
they can't run cables.
yeah. For me, it's not quite that bad, but I do live out in
Mhm.
the boonies. All of our phone lines here are still above ground
Okay.
on what I affectionately like to refer to as toothpicks holding up spaghetti.
Yes, yeah, we got lots of those.
Yeah, especially when the wind picks up, branches come
Mm,
down, and lines snap,
yeah.
which is
Yeah, I think
it
that's why
is
a lot of
oppressively
like
irregular.
the storm that happened here, and Ishmael mentioned a bit as well, where he said he's still out of power. We still have like sections that are
Oh,
missing power. And I even saw it yesterday. I went to go see Doctor Strange, and there was like pockets where there wasn't anything, and it's because so much of our cables are, I think, above ground on those toothpicks.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah, no, there are nice things about living out in the boondocks. And there's little bit
yeah.
dislike. Thankfully, we've got a semi-regular connection here.
Mm,
I've got my LAN cable running all the way to the router.
yeah.
Um, that helps me. That is one of the only reasons I am able to stream because the Wi-Fi in this house is absolute garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is at most 1.5 megs on a good day,
Whoa,
and
that
cannot
is oh
cannot hold that. Um, whereas when I hook up the when I hook up the cable all the way, it's 15 megs instead, which is nice.
Yeah. I
It's
think
just
I do, because I work from home now, predominantly. So
mhm,
I pay for the good shit. Um,
but
so I think
understandable.
I think I'm about 500 upload and 2 gigs download.
Hmm.
I think right now. I haven't
God,
tested
two
recently,
gigs.
but it's one of those things where, and again, like you, I have a LAN cable running to my internet source for my PC.
Mm,
Um, so it makes, which is why that one stream that went so bad, like it surprised me so much because it's like this doesn't happen to me. I've paid for this
yep,
not to happen.
yeah. Unfortunately, here in Germany, we have a saying that telecom owns the last 5 meters of your connection,
Ugh, God.
which is technically true because I hate telecom. Deutsche Telekom could go die in a fire,
Yeah.
but they've owned the internet lines and the phone lines here for the longest time now
Yeah.
because back in the days of communist Germany,
Yeah.
they owned all the phone lines. They were the people's telephone company. There were no other companies.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's, I think it's like Canada's got that too, where like there's basically, in my area, there are 2 decent providers, and guess you basically, and both of them are like both of them are awful in different degrees. So you got to pick which awful you're willing to live with.
yeah, yeah. And for us here, we pay for our internet through O2,
Yeah.
but telecom, O2 maintains the connection all the way across the wire up until the last 5 meters between us
Mm,
and the telephone pole. Those last 5 meters, telecom owns those,
okay.
and those can be whatever quality telecom wants.
Oh no.
They are not obligated to upgrade them, and no matter how good of a package we pay for, if those lines
Handle it.
uh,
That's your get
can
your
handle that,
yeah.
yeah, it gets bottlenecked.
Oh god.
So we've been appealing for quite a while to get to get fiber here,
Yeah, yeah, the fiber optics, yeah.
um, but instead we are dealing with normal cables for the time
Oh,
being, which is
that's
why
too bad.
rather than the 2 gigabytes we might be able to get, or the 1 gigabyte even,
Mhm.
we are stuck to 15 megs.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing that's frustrating, like in my area, is like you've got these 2 bigger ones, and like there's these other companies that also operate in the area, but the problem is that those companies ultimately are paying for a bit of the 2 big companies slice, if that makes sense. Like,
Mhm. Yeah,
um, so you've got cases where, yeah, you can kind of go to someone else, but if it breaks, you have to go to the 2 big ones to fix it. Like that's
exactly.
been
If
Flora's
it, if those
experience.
if that line
Like,
gets cut, if those 5 meters
yeah,
get cut, we have to call telecom to come
yeah,
repair it.
because that's been Flora's experience, is that like she's been having internet troubles, and like a lot of it has to do with, oh, someone was digging or someone was doing something and that line got cut, and it's not
Mm,
her internet provider that has to come out, it's the person who they lease the lines from, they have to come out, but because she's not their quote unquote primary customer because she's leasing out from a competitor, they'll come when they
yeah,
feel like it.
yeah, she's low on the priority list.
Yeah.
I know that pain and I hate it.
I'm sorry, Flora.
Oh, poor dragon.
Yeah. Well, she's
Um,
also had like, I think that she's been posting like her street got flooded a bunch of times, and
oh,
then the unfortunate thing is that means they have to come out to fix the water lines, and inevitably they're not always careful, but so sometimes the internet line gets cut again. And like also I think to some degree I remember Mal talking about it once, that there's like a certain acidity in the soil in our area, so like lines even when they're
oh,
buried,
it'll eat through the insulation.
yeah, it'll eat through so the wire's only good for a certain amount of time before it will have to be replaced. And this
Ugh,
happened, I moved and it's been
this is why
better.
you use ceramic piping.
Oh, they don't do that.
You make a ceramic pipe, you run the cable through so it protects it against the
Mm,
soil. But no, that would take too much digging and too much
yeah, too
effort.
much work, too much money. No, no money.
No, no, no.
Co-
Can't eat into the profit margin too much.
Internet companies poor. What? No. Despite all the money I pay them, they poor. They have no
Yes,
money. They have to go fight in court. Like that's so.
yes. They know the money for all the court, like the lawsuits they have to deal with.
Well, the funny thing is that so. Funnily enough, the company that I get internet from, I don't mind saying this because it's a freaking national company. It's Rogers, is the
Mm,
name of the company, and Rogers is a family based, or was originally a family based business. So all their court battles. So I'm paying for the son and the wife to be arguing in court about who gets to be director of the freaking board. Like, I'm not like it's
Wonderful.
not lawsuits about like, oh, it's subpar service. No, it's so the family members could have it out in court.
Jesus.
Because it was one of those cases where like the husband died and then basically the line of succession wasn't secure enough for the capitalist overlords. Yes, how will they afford their yachts?
Yes. They must keep their they must keep their money pools at least halfway full at all times.
Yeah, if you're at all interested in getting yourself really mad, you can Google Rogers court cases, and you could,
Uh,
and then you can be mad for a day.
if there's nothing I hate more than internet providers being assholes, it's family court politics. Mixing the two
Yeah.
is just a recipe for disaster.
Hmm. Hmm. Just ugh.
Man, yeah. Fun times.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I? Winding backwards a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
I did because fucking Gimp's not here anymore to mention this.
That's okay.
But he is specifically developing, sort of not necessarily meant for like prolonged play or anything.
Hmm.
Because me and my friends we've all been having our turns of both GMing for each other, playing with each other, and also developing our own stuff.
Yeah.
Like for me, for instance, I mentioned I was dissatisfied with Mutants and Masterminds as
Gotcha.
a sort of capes style tabletop, and also the Marvel system is okay, but it's not my favorite.
Okay. I
I
didn't
think
even know Marvel had a system. Interesting.
it did. They outsourced it,
Ah.
third party publishing house to work on it, and they're looking, I think, for writers for another one. Um, though I don't think I'm going to apply for that because I have no credentials and all that.
Mm.
Uh, Not that I could anyway. But yes, I took it to myself to make my own system, and I've been working on it steadily for a few years. And he himself is also making his own specifically for playing Persona.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So he's having fun with that.
Ooh.
So yeah, we're both extremely amateur tabletop
Yeah.
system devs. Mine
It's
lived.
because when I ran Persona for Besem, and that was one of the biggest things I had challenges with was the Persona overlay, if that makes sense. Because like making a character in Besem is relatively straightforward, but making because like it basically ended up being two character sheets: a character sheet for the character, and then a character sheet for the persona.
Yeah,
And then
that's assuming you're not a wild card.
well, all the characters no, I decided not to have a wild card idea, so everyone picked more or less their fixed arcana. But what would happen is when they formed social links, they could buy skills from the other arcana's tech tree, basically, and put those onto their persona, and their persona would have a certain number of slots. So that was where the reflavoring and rejigging could come, where it's like you may start as a chariot arcana, but if you form a social link with a magician, congratulations, you have access to fireball now, or whatever.
Yeah. Have a good rest, Sasha.
Oh, bye, Sasha. Yeah,
Rest
take it
your head.
easy. I'm sorry, I have a headache.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a problem that we mentioned before with like the very fluctuating stats in some systems.
Yes, yeah.
Um, you have to be careful with tabletops not to make them too video gaming. You have to be
Yes.
very careful with that because video games work as they do because you have a computer running and
Mhm.
like observing and regulating everything in the background.
Yeah.
Which is why you can have a Final Fantasy game, which originally they were made as straight up just a D&D game.
Yeah.
Like AD&D, like Final Fantasy 1 was just AD&D.
Yeah.
But it ran from level 1 to 99 rather than just level 1 to 20.
Mhm.
So you have levels 1 through 99. You have all the stuff you get, the incremental stat increases.
Yeah, and the spell slots and things like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and the mana and everything. That works well enough as a video game, but people have had tons of trouble trying to translate that back into tabletop.
Yeah.
You have like the fan-made Final Fantasy RPG. I think it's on its 4th edition now. The 3rd edition is my favorite.
Okay.
But it has you running from first level to 99. Has all the XP requirements, the incremental stat increases for your class. There's no multi-classing because that would infinitely complicate things.
Fair enough.
Just like you don't have this like 4 and 6 style job round like a merry-go-round thing you can do. You can switch jobs out. And that there are limitations there. You like not being able to switch jobs,
Hmm.
because then you would have to do all kinds of like recalculation of stats,
Yeah.
or someone might kneecap themselves by putting 40 levels in Black Mage and then 40 levels in Warrior,
Yeah.
having stats that are completely unsuited to being in Warrior.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like you have video games are okay for having lots of little moving parts. Same
Yeah.
with Persona,
Yeah.
um, which is yeah, it's why making a video game adaptation or a video game adapted into tabletop can be very difficult.
Yeah.
Um, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
I know one of the guys who's GMing for me recently. He's also a VTuber. It's called Call Me Shameless.
Okay.
Um, he runs on Wednesdays, I believe, a Pokemon game
Ooh,
because
Pokemon.
he's the type of guy who has the stats of individual Pokemons all across the generations memorized by heart
Oh
with
my God.
EVs, everything.
That's a
He
lot.
is
There's
a
like 800 of those things.
Yep, he is a meticulous type.
Ooh.
Um, and yeah, and so he's of course perfectly suited to statting out all the different Pokemons all the way from level 1 to 99.
Oh my goodness.
And he did that all himself. Uh, and he runs a game on Wednesdays where it's a group of people each with their one Pokemon, because of
Okay.
course you can't have more than one, otherwise it
Yeah.
makes things much more difficult. He already does things in a fairly roundabout manner, where
Mhm.
rather than using like Roll20, he has I think it's something. It's a art program kind of like GIMP,
Oh, okay.
where he has the map on there and he individually moves the tokens after people tell him how to move them. So he can manually repaint the map and everything as he goes along,
Oh, wow.
um, all while having all the different sheets open for both the enemies and his players. And yeah, I could never do things like
Oh,
that.
no, no. I like,
I I like the
I've,
fact, as much as I gripe to my friends about how Roll20 functions, I like the fact that it can like auto roll and do stuff like that for me.
yes, yeah. We've used Foundry a little bit on stream, which I
Oh,
found is pretty good. I've used Roll20 as well, though I'm a little less familiar with that. But like I agree. Like whenever I do GM, my strength is not in sitting there having like being able to quickly crunch numbers or to do all that kind of like on the fly, like I don't want to call it combat-y stuff, but like deep mechanics. Um,
crunchy stuff. Yeah.
I've generally been told, like in terms of like feedback, that where I tend to excel in more in terms in my NPCs, in terms of making characters or having some
Yeah,
stuff like that, which is I think
that's
is
still
why
fair.
a lot of people liked my Persona game, because basically I got the opportunity to kind of make these like very specific NPCs as the social links, and
Hmm.
they were like the social links could be friends with multiple party members, but they would only be one character's social link.
Right.
So the idea was being that you could kind of use that to kind of develop your character along a quote unquote class or things like that based on who you would form your social links with. And then there was a couple like common social links, because you look, I don't know if you recall in the games, there's like, quote unquote, the Judgment Arcana, or like where it's like it represents the social link of the investigation team. So
Hmm.
everyone gets access to those skills if they want
Yeah.
to use them, type of thing.
Like, right, in number 3, you would have the Fool, which is just the
Yeah.
C's group.
Yes. Yeah. Something like that. So where it's like these are kind of like quote unquote the kind of like common skills if you want them on your persona or things like that. But like anything was like flavored. So like say for instance I mentioned like magician had fireball. That wasn't technically accurate. The idea was is that when you created your persona at the beginning of the game, you picked your elemental affinity and your weakness. And then the
Hmm.
idea being is you when you purchased firebolt, it would tinge itself to your persona's element.
Hmm.
So it would be like
Okay,
an
so
ice
you
spear if you picked ice elemental, or it would be lightning based or whatever, based on what you picked.
yeah, cool. Okay.
I'm not gonna say it's
Well,
a perfect system. There was definitely like, especially the first time I ran as Persona 3, that was broken. There was some skills in there that were just nopes.
hmm, hmm. No, no, wait, I don't want to say that. No, I would expect it to be perfect, and
Yeah.
honestly, I would want it to be perfect because let's just be frank, that would be boring. No, that sounds like a hell of a lot of fun. I think, and from the way you talk about it, it definitely sounded like you and your players had a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, we did. Like it was definitely like I tried to make it interesting. So like say for instance when I did Persona 4, I changed who the murderer was.
Huh.
Because I'm like, you know what? I've got people coming into this game who have played Persona 4. They've played Persona 4 more than me.
Smart.
I don't want to be like having a Adachi just sitting there going "Meow,"
I
and
am.
them being unable to do anything for an entire campaign despite going like "J'accuse, j'accuse."
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that'd be. Yeah, it would be like sitting through Persona 4 all over again, sitting across the room from Adachi and just going like, "I know you did it.
I know you did it, you asshole.
The only reason I can't open my mouth and accuse you is because the game won't let me."
Because it's metagaming to accuse you. Damn it.
Yeah. But you know, that hmm. Now I just want to call dibs on a slot in the Persona 5 game, which will inevitably come and is totally on the horizon.
Oh, I don't know. Like I feel like that's going to have to be, if I were to run it, would have to be off stream because like several of the players, they're friends of the Dungeon Lounge. Like we've been friends with them for years because normally,
Mhm.
like all 4 members of the Dungeon Lounge, we're all part of the same tabletop group that meets every Thursday.
Mhm.
And when I ran Persona 4 back in the day, it was for who was available for that Thursday slot at the time. So some of them are Dungeon Lounge members, but some of them are people we normally game with but don't stream. So I
Mm.
feel like if I were to make it a stream campaign, they'd be like, "Why? I can't come to your stream. No, I am excluded." So it's a hard thing because I don't want
No,
to
I
say like there's
understand
a quote
that, but
unquote waiting list or something. I don't have that much of an opinion of my GMing skills, but it's definitely something where I feel like certain
you
people
have
want a
certain
spot at the table.
yeah, you have certain people you want to give priority to,
Yeah.
which is absolutely understandable. I do the same with a bunch of my friends.
Hmm.
Um, and that's also the reason why I haven't started streaming my Tuesday Warhammer game, despite some people having expressed an interest.
Hmm.
I want to respect the fact that some people just aren't comfortable being on a stream.
Yeah, like I feel like I RP differently
Mhm.
than I would
I
like
mean, yeah, it makes sense. There's certain things you can't say. There's certain attitudes you can't take.
yeah.
There's just certain, but even just having the pressure of people watching changes how you interact with others.
Yeah. Well, I mean like
Um,
say for instance this was just before the pandemic hit and then Mal kind of decided he was running Dark Heresy, which is based off of the Warhammer 40K universe,
mhm.
specifically the Inquisitors.
Yep.
And it was a very interesting campaign. There was a lot of inter-team conflict because you had a psyker. I was playing an Admech Dominus, and you had like some people with origins in the guard. You had people like a former sister. Sasha was playing a former sister of battle, and so you had like these very conflicting opinions, but ultimately a system that was also very fascist because
Hmm. Yeah,
congratulations, that's the Imperium. It's fascist.
that's the Imperium as well. They are not the good guys.
No, they are not. Don't let anyone tell you different. They are not. There is no good guy in 40K. Uh,
Not even the fucking Tau.
no, basically, nobody's good. Everyone's shades of surviving.
Horrible. Yeah.
And
Um,
we got to a point where it was just like with everything going on with the pandemic, it's like I can't like there was a lot of feeling where it's like this is getting a little heavy.
mm,
And Mal
uh,
made the decision to stop running the campaign. I think we were kind of at a stopping point, anyways. We were kind of between missions, but it was more or less
absolutely,
just like not right now.
absolutely fair.
Yeah,
I would not blame him for doing that.
yeah,
There is, as a GM, it is important to me that I observe the boundaries for my players, but at the same time, my own boundaries also take precedence. If
yeah,
I am not
yeah,
comfortable running something, I am not going to do it, and I would not expect my players to demand me to do it.
yeah,
Thankfully, we
definitely.
don't have anybody that does that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like our kind of the Thursday group that I mentioned, like we've got a very good, like I'm not gonna say it's perfect because nothing ever can be, but
No.
we've been gaming together for over 10 years with I think our
Yeah.
current lineup. More or less. Sasha is the quote unquote most recent addition to the lineup, and it's been more or less stable since she joined. Um, and yeah, like, over that course of time, you generally learn everyone else. Like, we generally know where other people's boundaries are, where they will or will not be comfortable. And also, like, you also pick up the quirks about what they may tend to play.
Yeah. Like
Like,
if I were to, for instance, say
mm,
Yimp, who came in earlier,
yeah.
he tends to play characters who are a little bit more on the not necessarily gentler side, but more
Mm,
soft-spoken side. He
okay.
tends to play people who are a little bit more prone to depression,
Mm, mm,
because because but a little bit of himself bleeds into that.
Yeah.
He streams on occasion too, and he likes to discuss like heavier topics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and he himself is also dealing with his own health issues.
Oh, okay.
He suffers from demyelination disorder.
Oh no. Like that's like the dendrites of your brain and the neurons, right?
Yeah, specifically, it's the demyelination is when the fatty tissue around
Yeah,
your nerve
the
cells
the
degenerates.
sheath basically for your
Yep.
neurons.
The myelin sheath, yes.
Yeah.
That degenerates. He recently tested his neuron conduction rate, and it comes out to below half the speed of your average neuron.
Oh no. That must be
So
so frustrating.
well, it is frustrating for him, and so he
Yeah.
harbors quite a bit of negativity about that. His own
Mhm.
mental and health, his mental and physical state. He harbors. He talks about it on his stream. He talks about it with us. He's very frank about it.
I
He
think
also
like
he
I
also
mean
he,
I don't
he
want to
fights
like
with
to sorry.
hmm?
I was just saying like I don't feel if you don't want to talk about your personal stuff, you don't have to, but I do like that a lot of the tone about like as it comes to like conditions like Yinf has or like other mental health struggles that if people are willing to talk about it, I think it helps overall because you get like a lot of stigma where people don't understand or they don't treat things as with this maybe the seriousness that it deserves
Mm.
because you don't understand because like the old story about depression. Oh, just go for a walk and you'll feel better. Like it's just you're just having a
Uh,
bad day.
yeah, no, you don't just shrug off depression.
Yeah.
And my friend is very much like that. He gets incredibly insulted
Yeah.
when both people tell him to just struggle through it,
Yeah.
or when, for instance, he has been routinely denied disability,
Oh no.
despite repeatedly applying for it, having medical records that show he is disabled.
Yeah.
But he also gets incredibly insulted when people try and get offended on his behalf.
Yeah.
Make disability arguments about things like those magical wheelchairs they integrated in 5e just recently, and he hates that. He hates it with a
Oh
passion
no. Okay.
because he doesn't want to play a disabled person in an RPG. He doesn't want to be reminded of the
He
state he's in.
he wants the fantasy, right? Yeah.
And he doesn't want to remind himself of the fact that he can barely feel his fingertips and his toes, and sometimes he just randomly falls over.
Mm.
Or the fact that he sometimes he stabs himself in the leg with a wire just to remember he feels something in his legs.
Mm.
There'll be times during an RPG session where he'll just say, "I've been stabbing myself in the knife with this in the leg with this knife for the last like 10 minutes. I can barely feel it." The rest of us will go,
Oh.
"What the fuck?"
Yeah, like that's like
I think he'll say this with the most congenial voice. He's like, I've been stabbing myself repeatedly, and it's like everybody else is going, "Well, dude, that's not normal." I was like, "I know."
I'm
Yip is an
accustomed
odd
to the
character.
horror. Oh, but that
Yeah,
doesn't make it less horrible.
yeah, but he plays characters that tend to be a little more sad, a little more self-destructive.
Yeah.
Recently we were playing a Fate game, which I'm
Okay.
planning on running one of those myself soon. Not Fate the system,
Okay.
but the Fate the 5e hack for like Fate as in the anime series, done by
Oh,
the
yeah.
yeah,
The
done by the
Grail.
Nat 19
The
group.
Grail and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
the Grail War,
Ah.
Murder Death Kill. It's done by Nat 19, which is the same group that is Project Mouthwash, do the Fate Bridge series.
Mm.
It's a very decent system. I quite like it, and it's very fun to make heroic spirits. But he recently played both as a GM and as a player characters that tended to be a little more on the self-destructive side. He is playing a version in this. He's playing a saber, Bedivere.
Okay.
But a version of Bedivere that did not throw Excalibur back into the lake, returning it to the Lady of the Lake. Instead, he kept the sword, feeling intense shame and betrayal of his king, to the point where at the end of his story, he takes his own life. Now he's been summoned as a servant. Fun fact, there's a specific skill or a power given to servants that take their own life.
Oh.
In Fate. It's one that allows you to come back from the brink of death because only you get to determine when you die.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
Lots of very conceptual stuff like that. But yes, going back to the topic of you get a feel for how people tend to play. He tends to play people who are a little more sad, a little more on the destructive side.
Yeah.
Whereas my friend Grim, who is a bit older than the rest of us, tends to play quirky little strange folks. He recently in Shameless's game that we play on Thursdays, Pathfinder. He's playing a little Gripply called Fuggles.
Funkles. Sorry.
He's a little alchemist frog. He's a little strange. He's a priest of Heket,
Okay.
um, or Kek, the frog goddess.
Mm.
He's strange, and he secretes poison, and he climbs all over the place, and he brews odd potions in his cauldron. But he's also the heart of the group, and he's friendly and personable and nice. In our Warhammer game, he plays Grobo Spaggins, a halfling who hunts undead, but at the same time still manages to stay cheery despite.
Aw. Yeah, I don't want to out. I don't want to out my group. I certainly I know Flora and I think to some degree Mal are still around, so I'm not going to start calling out their foibles that I've observed over time because I'm pretty sure they'll be like, don't you dare! I'm not here to defend myself, but so I'll at least speak to myself.
Mm.
This has been an observation both I have observed as well as one that I've been called on, and I've generally been told that when I fall on old habits, when I make a character, I make the bitch.
Uh,
And like, say for instance, like that tends to express itself. Like, say if it's a vampire, I tend to make the social ventru bitch.
or
Uh,
Toreador.
Funnily enough, I've never played a Toreador. Like, I keep getting
Oh.
Toreador as like, if you were a vampire, you'd be a Toreador. And it's like, I've never even played one.
Mm.
Anyways. But like, I would say, for instance, like, that expressed itself most recently. I've talked about the L5R game that Flora is running. I've created a Scorpion Ninja. Her name
Ah.
is Bayushi Nisei. And she is generally the, like, we went to a village and we had to there were a bunch of children got kidnapped by some ronin. The ronin used to be the protectors of the village, but the villagers got an offer from one of the major clans to get to receive ashigaru, the guards.
Mm.
So took that offer and then told the ronin, you have to go. And the ronin were like, okay, fine, we're taking
Oh,
something while we're leaving. Because
yikes.
the area was inhospitable, so when they didn't really have anywhere else to go to resettle easily.
Mm.
Um, I won't hear Nisei slander. I'm not saying Nisei is great. She's also a bitch. But anyways, like, so the group's having the discussion about how to save these children, and Nisei's like, "We have a schedule. We can just leave.
Mm.
We
I
don't
mean,
have we
as
don't
a
have to deal with these children. They can. These villagers chose to tell the Ronin to f off. We can just go." And if
which
we
is a
do go to
pragmatic
rescue the
point
children,
of
we're
view.
going to make the situation worse.
Mm. It's a pragmatic point of view, something I would
It is,
expect
but
from
it's
someone who is a
Nisei
clan
did not
member.
sugarcoat it.
Okay.
Like, that's, she's like, we are not here to solve their problems, more or less.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's generally been like Nisei's thing, more or less. And I mean, also she's also very sneaky too, because
Hmm.
ninja, or rather,
I
she's not a ninja. She is a thing that does not exist in Rokugan because the Emperor said
Yes,
they don't exist.
exactly. Yes, there's no such thing as shinobi in
No.
Rokugan.
She just
Um,
sometimes needs to wear black pajamas and go out
hmm.
windows.
Yes. Sometimes she flies a kite. But
Whee!
yes, like for myself,
Mm-hmm.
at least as far as I know, when I fall on old habits,
Mm-hmm.
either I tend to try and play the intellectual,
Yeah.
like independent of how smart I actually am, um, the skill monkey, the intellectual, well, the brains in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like one D&D game I'm currently playing on Wednesdays, I'm playing a elf sharpshooter who crafts his own firearms. He has a bunch because he's a rogue. He has a bunch of skill points to put into all kinds of skills. The high intelligence, yeah, he pops people from range, and whenever there's a problem, he usually has a tool for the issue.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the times that he doesn't, one of the other party members usually can follow up. If it's something like intimidating,
Mm.
diplomacy, or things like that. But he's good for shooting people and for solving problems and making stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that, or I tend to play the. Often I tend to play the moral compass of the party.
Okay, yeah.
I find myself often surrounded by otherwise more pragmatic or just novice people.
Mm.
Because I tend to make a point of trying to get newer people into tabletops. Or if I have, like, for instance, I have a friend who recently got a game group together
Mm-hmm.
of newer players, and he had a slot open. and he wanted to have a friend who was more experienced with the system in there to help provide an example, um, and help coach the other players while he's distracted with running the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to be the oldest and also the most experienced in the room. So I tend to play support characters that are the moral backbone, as well as help to push the party in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I generally tend to fall back on things like clerics and druids.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
would
tend to
say I've
play
got a
someone
bit of
who's
that as well because um one I generally struggle, especially like in World of Darkness games. I'd struggle
mm,
playing uneducated characters because I don't want to be like, "Oh, I'm so wonderful or anything, but I have a fairly educated background. I've attended university, I have an undergraduate degree and things like that. So I find it
mhm,
difficult to turn my brain off in some
mhm.
respects. So I find I don't want to make like an unskilled character because then I find I metagame otherwise.
Yeah,
Because it's like, oh,
it's
here's
it's it's very difficult to play a character smarter than yourself, and
yes,
character who is less. I'm not gonna say less intelligent, but
yeah,
uh, less worldly, less
hmm,
educated. I come from both a fairly blue collar background as well as being having gotten higher education myself.
hmm,
So I can kind of go in both. I work in a very blue collar job while
yeah,
also being involved in a lot of more advanced stuff on the side, and have a lot of friends who are in those fields. So I have
hmm,
context for both.
yeah,
Um, so I don't have as much of an issue playing someone who's like a roughneck or like a leatherneck, or someone who's like a auto shop worker or an army man, or
hmm,
um, I like playing roles like that. Someone who's a little more rough and tumble, a little more hardy than I
hmm,
am. But I understand where you're coming from with that,
yeah.
because otherwise you're sitting there going like, how much of this is me just dumbing my character down? How much is
Yeah.
this me avoiding metagaming?
And that's the
Because
concern also is like I don't want to be I worry that if I, quote unquote, I don't want to patronize
mm,
the idea of of an uneducated character being like me stupid or something like
yeah,
that. Like I don't want to
I
be
definitely don't want to portray
that
that.
person.
It's, it's
Um
one of my friend Grim routinely runs into that issue. He tends to play like the one who knows the monster's weaknesses and stuff like that, the ranger
yeah.
types, because otherwise he's sitting there going like, I could quote the monster manual at you,
Hmm.
because he is that experienced with like 3.5.
Yeah.
He could quote the entire monster manual and all the monster's weaknesses to you verbatim, as well as all the really obscure stuff. He knows a bunch of obscure splat books.
Oh wow.
Um, and if he sits there playing like a fairly otherwise world unwise character,
Hmm.
um, like, he tends to pull back. He knows he tends to pull back too hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And the character is both unknowing of a lot of like common wisdom, as well as being resistant to learning it,
Hmm.
up until I, as the GM, go to him and say, no, your character has now been exposed to this, they know about it.
Yeah, like you don't pull your punches anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But
Because
yeah,
otherwise
like that's also what I tend to
he has a
avoid.
tendency to, yeah, he
I
knows he has a tendency to otherwise finagle and pull a MacGyver with a lot of different
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's also why I tend to avoid pure combat classes because I find I don't have the like not necessarily that I don't know systems well enough to make that kind of build, but I don't find I'm not the right type, I guess, of I don't want to say the right type of person, but like
Right type of mindset.
yeah, like I mean, they talk about like those like different ones. What kind of RPG player are you? And it's like you've got the people who are like they are achievement based. They want to like conquer the dragons. They want
Mm.
to get the big damage rolls, and those are all fine. I'm not saying that one is better or worse playstyle wise, or generally worse than the other, as long as everyone is able to still work together. You don't have a person sitting in the corner going, "Oh, there's no combat here. I'm
Yeah.
just going to sit here and just
Yeah.
make
It's like,
frowny faces until you put a dragon in front of me." But
yeah.
I find I'm not generally good with those combat-y type classes because
Mm.
I don't want to say I'm not aggressive enough. That's not a fair statement,
No.
but
It's,
I don't think that way when I see combat. I don't see a thing to kill. I generally see a problem to solve.
mm.
So that's
Yeah.
why I tend to drift towards to more caster classes or at least tool or other where things where it's like I can kind of think my way through it as opposed to
Mhm.
I keep stabbing until it falls down. I say this, but meanwhile my last D&D character was a barbarian.
Ha.
Because you
And
don't
like
always play to type, right? So
yeah, it's true, and it's always good to branch out and broaden your horizons.
yeah,
It's like even if you're not necessarily comfortable with it, you should still step outside your
yeah, yeah.
comfort zone now and then. But yeah, no, I've seen those quizzes before. You have the hack and slashers, you have the big damn heroes, you have the role players, the thespians,
Yeah.
the puzzlers, and all of them are perfectly good ways to play your RPG.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, I said this before with Vampire, you want to make sure everybody's on the same page before you get into a game, so everybody knows what to expect. And so if someone is a particular type of player, they know whether or not they're going to get what they want out of it.
Yeah, like definitely like the session zero, especially for World of Darkness, I find is so important because like sometimes you really have to be clear. Like some things are lines like I'm not like we call them like the kind of like your no-goes where it's like you can't have certain types of sexual content, or at least you need to fade to black. I don't want it present in the game. And that's totally fair. Everyone's got where their no-goes are. And I find with World of Darkness, you really need that session zero, especially if you're with an unfamiliar group, in order to be like, yes, I understand, like, to some degree, like, there's a visceralness to the vampire kiss, to the bite, and things like that, but some people may not be able to tolerate it, and maybe just having the fade to black is important for their mental health.
Yeah. World of Darkness, from its inception, was meant to be taking the 90s, 80s goth punk edginess and cranking it up all the way to about as far as anybody could tolerate, and sometimes past that. You have some of the awfulness that just springs purely from humanity. You've got violence, you have sexual assault, you have drugs, you have human trafficking, you have this is the World of Darkness. It is the worst take on humanity.
It's not World of Lightness or World of Grayness, it's World of Darkness.
No, it is. Everybody's awful to some degree. Everybody's suffering in some manner. It's not a nice place.
Yeah.
There is a veneer of the acceptable and of the polite fiction of humanity.
Yeah.
But underneath it, everybody has a taint. Everybody has a darkness to them. Everybody has a certain animal they hide away that they keep away from society until nobody's watching. Yeah. Vampires are simply that animal when they're forced to bring it out.
Yeah.
And they have to constantly fight with it. Vampires have they have the kiss, which requires them to, in some cases, put their target through excruciating pain and exercise great strength of will and restraint, otherwise risking killing them.
Yep.
Or putting them to shock due to blood loss. You have the horrors that come from things like the Nagaraja and the Simichi, who just by nature of their clans do terrible things.
Yeah.
Just by mechanism of it. You have like
when you're a fleshcrafter, what else are you gonna do but fleshcraft?
Yeah. Vicissitude. Am I right?
Yeah.
Then you have like the there's slightly more obscure ones like the Toreador and Titribute. Are you familiar with the Antitribute?
The Antitribute?
Yeah.
Okay.
The polar opposites.
They're the quote unquote Sabbat versions, right?
Well,
or when they're more Sabbat aligned. It's when they take the clan that's not the clan. When they take either the Camarilla Sabbat when it's technically not where that clan has aligned, if I recall, right?
Yeah. It's whatever small like fringe sect of that clan stands in opposition to the original clan.
Yeah.
Not necessarily Sabbat. It is whenever they stand in opposition of the original clan.
Sorry. I guess I mean like where you have like a. I don't know if it's Zimichi or Zimiche. I've heard so many pronunciations. Where like they are technically more Sabbat aligned, and I think the core clan more or less is that line. But if you have one that somehow ended up Camarilla aligned, I've never seen it pulled off in any campaigns I've been in. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but just
there are examples given in the books sometimes. Simichi are incredibly rare to see even independent.
Yes.
Let alone Camarilla, and they tend to be. Against their will, or they tend to be regarded with much suspicion and much hate, and they don't tend to last very long. Same way with Tremere that go over to the Sabbat. And Antitribute it literally means against the tribe or opposite the tribe. And they are whatever is the direct opposite of the clan. For instance, the Salubri, they're Antitribute. They forsake the whole pursuit of Golconda, the path to enlightenment, and instead dedicate their entire lives to hunting Tremere.
Oh.
Because of the whole, they're the Tremere.
They're gonna go against the mighty Kevin?
Yes, they're gonna kill the great and mighty Kevin.
Not the mighty Kevin!
because
Sorry,
they're
that's a Hunter joke. Hunter the parenting joke.
yes, yes, great series.
Yes, it is.
But that's because the Tremere antediluvian devoured their antediluvian,
Mm,
and have since put on a massive smear campaign painting the Salubri as demon worshippers and kid devourers and diablerists,
mhm.
um, leaving the Salubri hunted and reviled by the rest of vampire society. Um, and so most of them take a vow of nonviolence or non-participation to the
Mhm.
general vampire society. But then you have the Antitribute that throw all at the side and basically go, "We're going to become the swords of Solomon." Oh, hey,
Hello, Raiders! Thank you,
welcome, welcome.
ADTR210, for the raid. Hello, welcome to the Dungeon Lounge. We're
Yeah,
just doing a little tea time right now with my guest, Quest Fun Fostis. Thank you.
hello.
How was your stream today, ADTR? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. I will give a shout out.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. The back on the topic of horrible things.
Yes.
You know how the Toreador are all about art and beauty.
Yes.
Well, imagine a part of that tribe that is completely against that. They do
Oh.
not practice hygiene. They smear themselves with filth. There was one case where they actually no, that's a horrible thing to say. I'm not going to say it on stream. They do nasty stuff, and a lot of people won't be comfortable with that. This
Yes.
is fair. So yeah, boundaries are absolutely necessary,
Yes, definitely.
especially in something like Vampire, which when it was made was all about the shock value.
Mm-hmm. Like I find especially like if you decide to do a Sabbat campaign, like that is
Hmm.
very much like if you don't have a group that's willing to approach it from a certain perspective, you just end up with like edge for the sake of edge,
Yeah, it's
which
a very common pitfall.
yeah,
But you also have to keep in mind with a Sabbat game,
yeah,
is they're not just the shovel heads you encounter in the Bloodlines game.
yeah,
There, you get a very biased perspective on them. You
mm,
literally just fight a bunch of city gangrene, and the odd, actually capable Sabbat member. They are, at their
mm,
core, vampire evangelists leading a doomsday cult, not just a bunch of
yeah.
rabble-rousing monsters.
Yeah, like I found like Hunter the parenting was very good for that, for kind of
Yes.
showing where like the different parts of the Sabbat kind of lie. Where you've got those shovel heads, but you've also got those like the I am the sword of Cain.
Mm-hmm.
And I do highly recommend anyone here in chat. If you have the time, or if you're somewhat interested in the world of darkness, especially vampire or even hunter or whatever, and you're like, but the setting seems unapproachable. You've just been throwing out words this whole stream, and I don't know what any of those words are. What's an anti-tribute? What's an antediluvian? What's a tremere? Oh God, Cain? What's it now? Um, I found like Hunter the Parenting, the parenting, Hunter the Parenting was very good for
Mm.
like slowly unraveling, like as the hunters are encountering things. What's a vampire? I can't help you with that, Flora. Um, it's like slowly kind of like unraveling things, especially those radio play episodes that they did.
Yes.
Oh man, like that was like there was a
If you've got
moment in
if
one of
you've
the
got an
radio
hour to
plays.
spare where you're like doing dishes or something,
Yeah, like there was the interrogation of the great and mighty Kevin.
which is excellent. I love how that
It's so
devolved into
good.
this weird friendship.
Yes, and there was a moment where they were talking, where Kevin was reflecting on his own existence as a vampire, where he is like, I am basically this undead thing living a pretend life that I can never have back. And I can't remember the entire context of the quote or what have you, but it was just I saw that moment and I'm like, they understand the setting. Like you basically have
Hmm.
these parasites playing these mind games with one another or with humanity or what have you, but it's all a sham. It's a method to pass time. They're all like
Yep.
they can't
It's a
die
it's
otherwise.
they're stalling until the end of the world.
Yeah.
It Hunter the Parenting does an excellent job of masterfully blending both entertainment
Hmm.
and education.
Yeah. And also
They
just the
bring up.
tragedy of it. Like people talk
Mhm.
about being kindred, being kind is a gift. It's this beautiful blessing of this undyingness. But do you ever really encounter a happy vampire?
Never, you never encounter. This is one thing I've struggled with because I am in the works of getting a vampire game for long in the future.
Mm.
Actually, not so long. Once the current Fate game we have planned out
Okay.
is done, we're gonna have that. Um, and one of the things had a problem getting to over across to one of my players in particular, because he insisted he wanted to play a clan of his own.
Okay.
And so what effectively we've done is we made a homebrew bloodline
So
with
like
its
a
own
caitiff
special
almost or something?
kind of. It's more like it's an old holdover from one of the medieval clans
Okay.
that died out for a while and has come back into prominence.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's still obscure. It's more of a bloodline, less a clan.
Mm-hmm.
It's they have this like blighted blood that if other vampires drink it damages them and gives a special kind of ghoulish ghoul like a ghoulship to humans they invest into. Um, they have a history of being uh, snake oil salesmen
Mm.
and people like faith healers and stuff from way back when.
Okay.
They were known as plague bearers and bringers because they were prominent during the times of like the leper colonies and the Black Plague in particular, because they
Oh.
would use their blood to suspend and fix the health of their followers. That would they would take on large pilgrimages across the countryside who
Mm.
still harbor the diseases but are immune to them thanks to their ghoulishness.
Ah, I see. Yeah.
And then that would come to the cities. They would spread the plagues. This would infect the other vampires' food source, which inevitably led to this clan or bloodline being hunted down.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Because if you
And
kill off too much of the herd, we got a problem.
yeah, especially if you seeking more, like if you're seeking one or two people more to add to your herd, and in as a result you end up infecting all 500 people in the town I am presiding over,
Yeah.
my flock that I am keeping as food, I'm going to rip your heart out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and one thing I had to work very hard to get across to him is nobody benefits from the curse of Cain
Yeah.
without a heaping helping of some sort of backlash or downside.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody purely benefits. Nobody even benefits from the curse of Cain.
Yeah.
Any benefit you get is counteracted by downsides and disadvantages that more than triple or quadruple in effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're effectively immortal. Yes, you can heal rapidly. Yes, you can throw dumpsters, outrun the local train, and dodge bullets like you're
Mm-hmm.
Neo. But you can't see the sunrise without roasting out your own eyeballs and charring to burnt bones.
Yeah.
You can't. Any food you eat turns to ash in your mouth.
Yeah.
Your skin is cold. Your heart is still. The only time you can ever have a beating heart again is when you spend a bit of blood to
Fake it.
put on a
Yeah.
yeah the flesh of life to
Yeah.
imitate humanity again. Um, you cause that you can never truly associate with either human or vampire ever again. You can never, what is it? You can't empathize with them anymore. You're
Yeah.
forever disconnected. You have this feeling of derealization or disassociation permanently in place.
Yeah.
You have to be a parasite on humanity. Nobody's happy.
Yeah.
Nobody's enjoying themselves. Nobody's benefiting from it.
Yeah.
Just in general, your existence is more of a net negative and bringing more misery than you ever did, even as a human. Even if you were a despicable person in humanity, you're even worse as a vampire.
Yeah.
Especially since the beast tends to bring out the darkest urges in a vampire and only amplifies them. So yeah, nobody benefits from a vampire existing anywhere, no matter how well-meaning that might be. Which is why the Salubri, recognizing what they suffer from, seek Golconda,
Yeah.
which is a form of enlightenment that either leads to you being destroyed or turning back into a hero.
Yeah. Like I know like I'll admit Salubri is one of the clans I'm least familiar with, generally because over the years whenever I've played in a campaign, the GMs have wisely been like, Salubri, you need to give me a good pitch why you want to play this clan,
Yeah,
because they are generally not compatible with the rest of the other clans.
they don't work
And
with the
also they're supposed
Sabbat.
to be
They don't
super
work with the
rare, right? So you
Paladins.
can't have like six of them running going,
Yeah,
wee.
there's a very limited amount of Salubri present at any point
Yeah.
in a given area. They're very rare. They're more common over towards the Middle East.
Hmm.
Um, they are a more, if not compassionate, at least more pacifistic clan.
Hmm.
They don't like getting mixed up in politics and other people's issues. They tend to be independent and neutral because they're hunted by the Tremere and the Camarilla as a whole, and the Sabbat see them as easy prey. They don't tend to mesh well. The only time you're really going to see them with any frequency is either an Anarch campaign, and even that's rare,
Yeah.
or in a purely independent campaign.
Hmm.
And yeah, playing the vampire healer can be cool, but yeah, also later Flora.
Hi.
Um, they're very rare. You do need a good pitch for one. One
Yeah.
idea I had proposed to me is a salubri campaign.
Oh, like an entire group of them. Yeah,
A
I
group of
mean, you
a
could
group of
do
salubri.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because technically speaking, their main discipline, Obeya, has two
Mm,
versions. One is a more
okay.
combat-focused one from the warrior caste, and
Mm,
one is the more typical modern version that tends to express most of that is the healing one.
mm-hmm.
So you can have multiple different ones. Some invest it more into Auspex. Some invest more into Obeya. Some into what do you call it? Into what was their third one? I forget. Whatever the case.
Mm.
Um, yeah, you can make it work.
Yeah.
It'll be a very one-track campaign
Yeah.
as everybody tries to search down clues for how to uh, master and get through Golconda.
Yeah. Like I feel like
Where
that'd
you
be a
play a
very
bunch.
migratory campaign as well.
Oh
Like,
yeah, you'd be walking around.
yeah.
Like for instance, the game I want to run, I'm probably gonna be placing in the Everglades to start off with, which
Oh,
will be
interesting.
fun.
Okay.
Florida men, am I right? Um, but yeah, another an alternative to that I had pitched to me is a group of Tremere hunters,
Oh, okay.
who, a bunch of Salubian tribute who band together for the sole purpose of a crusade against the local Tremere chantry, or
Oh, wow.
local Tremere chantry. They go in, they try to break past the wards and slaughter every Tremere there,
Yee.
which of course involves lots of hunting down Tremere, finding information, interrogating them, finding
Mm,
out how to break past the wards, preparing stuff, and then
yeah.
eventually the siege.
Yee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
But yeah, all this to culminate to say that everybody in the World of Darkness gets the short end of the stick. The
Yeah.
changelings have to constantly battle with reality so that they don't get too mundane.
Yeah.
The werewolves are constantly fighting a losing fight against the destruction of Gaia.
Hmm.
Um, the fallen are constantly making things worse by eating away at people and giving them devil bargains.
Yeah.
Um, the Prometheans are in a fruitless quest to try and turn into a real person, at which point they lose all of their powers and
Yeah.
just become a normal human who can be shot the next day,
Yeah.
rendering their entire story moot up until
Hmm.
that point. Um, it's a depressing setting, and it's meant to be
Yeah.
that way.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that's like a lot of it, especially like especially Hunter. I think I don't want to say Hunter is hopeful because like you're generally dealing with the those who fight monsters trope, which basically
Mm-hmm.
means there's the compromise after compromise after compromise
Yeah.
that adds up. But there is still hope, I
Yes.
guess is the best way to put it. Like there's the little
Hunter's.
victories you can get in you can eke out along the way.
Yeah. Hunter proposes an interesting thing in that they present a last line of defense between that
Hmm.
stand between humanity and the things called bump in the night.
Yeah.
um, you still struggle with a lot of stuff. You're still the weakest end of the power spectrum in terms of what's in World of Darkness. You could
Hmm.
never, as a hunter, you could never dream of going up against a mummy, for instance.
Hmm.
Or like you would have an entire team of hunters going against a single werewolf, and you
Yeah.
might have a chance of killing it. And as you go through it, you sacrifice little bits of your morals. You
Yeah.
sacrifice. You make compromises. You erode your own, and eventually, all that's left there is that conviction and that will to follow the voice of the angels to
Hmm.
hunt down the darkness and the night.
And you're not even
And
sure
this,
it's angels, let's be clear.
yeah, yeah, it. I mean, it's in the end, it fucking. Of course, White Wolf made a decision to unambiguize that, like
Yeah.
making God actually show up in the Second Coming at one point in the module.
Are you
Which,
talking about
what
the Gehenna book?
Yeah, there
Okay.
was a module where God actually comes back. It's a vampire module
Yeah, yeah.
where you sit in a church with a gargoyle who is this incredibly devout person who ministers to the last people on Earth, you guys included. And eventually, the second coming happens, and if everybody who is human survives and is untouched, but all the vampires, except for those who have the true faith trait,
Mm.
are all incinerated to a
Yee.
man. They're all turned to
Oops.
ash as the second coming happens. Every vampire in the world turns to ash, except for those who have the true faith trait. They get turned back into humans and are saved.
Oh.
God is real. He just abandoned us for the longest time. That is canonized by that module,
Mm.
which
Hmm.
is kind of takes a lot of the punch out of the system, and
I
I like to
mean,
set it.
with a lot of
So
stuff
it's
like with the sorry, I was just say like with a lot of stuff with like I find like with like the especially like World of Darkness with the Gehenna modules, and I've done it a bit like with L5R too. Is like I find the important thing is that you can use what you want from
exactly.
anything. Like if you don't want your vampire game to confirm God exists, don't do it. Don't run. You don't have to run that part of the Gehenna setting. And like I know like with L5R, like technically if you're running quote unquote canon L5R, at a certain point you have to introduce the Spider Clan, which I think is a stupid piece of
Hmm.
shit.
Yep. Or the what do you call it? The tainted master of the dragon clan.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, you know what? You can pick and choose. You could be like, this part, I don't want it. I
Yep.
remember a friend of mine recently ran a Song of Ice and Fire campaign,
Mm.
and they wanted to do an alternate storyline where certain things didn't happen. And to facilitate that, they're like, Cersei dies in childbirth, giving birth
Ah,
to the last of the
nice.
kids. She's off the board. Certain things won't happen now. We can kind of go in this different direction because she's not around to mess with the board.
And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, totally.
Um, you know, Hunter, though, also I want to come back to this. It also has its dark parts because the further you develop what do you call it? A hunter's primary, like, well, their core stat. I forget
Mhm.
what it's called. I think it's conviction.
Yeah, I think it might be conviction. It's not humanity anymore. Yeah.
No, 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 no. Just like how like vampires, they have their blood generation and they
Mm-hmm.
have other things. Uh, the hunters have conviction, which is their both their resource and the permanent points are what determine their upper limits for their abilities
Mm-hmm.
and help convert more points into their powers. The more you develop that, the more detached your person becomes, and they slowly start to lose touch with humanity,
Yeah.
and they start to become more ends justify the means.
Yeah.
You see this with Big D in Hunter the Parenting.
Yes.
You notice he's detached a little bit. He's very clearly insane,
Yes.
and very clearly has his own view of the world. Um, to be fair, is that his view of the world with the veil pulled back, as all hunters have that
Mm-hmm.
facade pulled back and irrevocably revealed to them.
Mm-hmm.
But he is insane, especially by our definition. He's
Yes.
crazy, um, and that is mechanically and roleplay wise expressed in Hunter. When your conviction goes up, your attachment to humanity loosens,
Yeah.
and eventually, if you reach 10 points in that stat, your character sheet is taken away from you
Yeah. And I mean,
because the
that's true
character.
for any setting. Like as soon as you hit 10 of
Mm-hmm.
humanity, or no, yeah, if you hit 10,
No,
no, if you hit one humanity, sorry.
you
Yeah, it
are
depends on
zero
which.
humanity, you become a beast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you've.
I think it's called wassail,
Oh, I wouldn't know the term offhand.
where you
I've
lose.
honestly never. It's never shown up in a game. Like we've had characters
Mm,
die before they get to one humanity. It comes up
yeah,
very rarely. Um, I know in
you get.
Mage, one of my characters technically hit 10, but she hit it. She went from like 6 to 10 in one fell swoop. So it was very.
Mm,
Um, we were playing Mage the Awakening, which is the new WoD version, and basically my
mhm.
character had the opportunity to enter her tower a second time.
Ooh.
And she did it. And basically, as soon as I did it, again, Mal was the run. Mal tends to run our World of Darkness games, just to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
He turned to me and he said, "Give me your character sheet." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean? I just went in the tower again." He's like, "You went in the tower again. Give me your character sheet. Congratulations, you won Mage." And I'm like, "What do you mean I won Mage?" He's like, "Your character's not playable anymore. Give me your character sheet."
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And he said he was actually planning to run. It didn't end up working out for whatever reason, but he had plans to run a hunter campaign where my old character, she would have shown up technically from the hunter's perspective as a villain,
Mm.
but from her perspective would have basically transcended mortal concerns where she like yeah, she was of the death, I don't say arcana,
Ah,
but she was death aspected, death and matter
tradition.
was yeah, her
Right.
tradition. And he's like, yeah, your character may slaughter everyone in an orphanage, but that has something to do with something she's doing over here. It's not personal. It's dispassionate. You're just doing this thing to fulfill this goal over here. But from a hunter's perspective, you've just killed a whole bunch of people and that can't go unanswered, right?
Yeah, you are part of the nasties now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hunters, when they hit 10, they turn to what's called the slasher,
Mm-hmm.
which straight up is then, and true to the name, is you're someone straight out of a horror slasher movie.
Yeah.
This is like Freddy or Jason, Your character has devolved into such insanity and has been so overwhelmed by the voices and by the light
Yeah.
that shines into their mind, that everywhere they look, they see monsters because they see the darkness in every human and every creature, and they lash out. So you have these incredibly powerful, miracle slinging hunters that just go around with an axe and a hockey mask, chopping through innocent or quote innocent bystanders. And then it's up to the hunters to hunt them down. And these are their mentors, their old comrades, their
Hmm.
friends, their fathers, their brothers, their mothers, their sisters, that they are forced to put down because they eventually become the monster they hunt.
Hmm.
That is what happens with hunters. Because
Yeah.
even then, even with a light that shines into the darkness, it is eventually overwhelmed by the darkness that surrounds it,
Yeah.
as is in theme with Wad.
Yeah. Uh, so I certainly don't want to like cut you off or anything, but I realize we were aiming to go for maybe a couple hours, and we're
Yeah, it's
approaching.
almost three.
We just sailed right past that.
Yeah, I mean, I had fun talking to you.
Yeah, definitely. I had a good time too. Obviously, I if I was having an issue, I would have said something earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, Mal, I keep talking about you, but you're the forever DM of World of Darkness games. So as long as I'm talking about World of Darkness, you're going to keep coming up. Sorry.
She speaks about you with great affection.
I like all my friends. That's why I keep them as my friends. Otherwise, if I did not like you, I would stop talking about you. I mean, that's generally like the joke I kind of have
Mm-hmm.
among my friends is like, if I didn't talk to you, if I don't speak of you, if I don't acknowledge you, if I don't worry about you, then
You're not doing. Yeah,
then you guess what?
you're
I
forgotten.
don't give a shit, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. If that's what we're wrapping it up,
yeah.
Ada, you have been a lovely host.
Thank you.
It
I
has been
think I really appreciate you coming and joining me. I was really entertained to talk to you about all this, and I hope everyone out there in Streamland also enjoyed. And thank you again to ADTR 210 for that raid. But yeah,
yeah.
certainly
I
this
would love.
is a bit of a test thingy. So if you have any feedback, please by all means send. We have a Discord here. I'll put out the thingy things so you can send me feedbackies if you have
Thing,
feedbackies.
thing the thing.
The thing.
Yes.
I also.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to do this again in the future sometime
Oh, great!
if you'd
I'm
like
happy
in.
to hear that.
I enjoy talking with you, and
Oh,
hell, if I could ever get a chance to talk to the rest of
mhm.
the dungeon lounge, that would also be an honor.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we could always. Like, I don't want to speak for anyone's schedules or for anyone's comfort things, but I'm assuming Flora or Sasha or Mal would also like to talk about their RPGs experience. Not that I
oh
intended
yeah,
this stream to turn into just talk about
sure.
tabletop RPGs for a few hours, but again, I'm not
I
complaining.
think that was mostly my bias coloring everything. You get someone else on, you talk about some very different
Fair
topics.
enough, yeah. Like if I say for instance if um like I know like
I mean,
fourth brother Tobias would be more Warhammer themed, I think, if based on
mhm.
his interests
And
and yeah.
it was like you also have another one who's regularly on. Was it Yiggity Yang?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no.
Oh,
I'm always
Sasha,
up.
you came back. How's your headache? Sorry, I got
Hope you're doing
distracted.
okay. But yeah, no, whatever the case. Um, I mean, now leave that for private chat. Don't want to put any
Yeah,
pressure on
yeah,
while
sure.
we're in stream. But yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. I'm
Mhm.
gonna go get set up for my Warhammer game. It's
Yeah,
gonna be a short
definitely.
session today. My friends and my players, my victims, just got done clearing out the basement of an old wizard's tower that was being converted into a clacker tower, a
Ooh.
what do you call it? What do you call it? A communication tower that uses like signal fire and shutters and
Mm-hmm.
big wooden arms that act like semaphore to communicate across long distances.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so a bunch of dwarves building up. Dwarves had gone missing during the night, and then they went in, stayed the night, got attacked by a ghoul, followed it down into the basement, discovered that it was the tower of an old necromancer who has since vacated, but it was still full of zombie guards, and they're currently midway through hacking through all that.
Oh no.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sasha. Well then,
But yeah, I think we'll again. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. I hope you enjoyed. I can't promise I can do this very often. Unfortunately, my work schedule is fairly 9 to 5y, so
mm,
tends to limit what hours I can do these types of streams. But yeah, I would like to definitely try this again, either with Quest joining me, or perhaps other members of the Dungeon Lounge, or perhaps other people out there who are also interested. I am eager to have tea and talk with lots of people and have lots of discussion topics. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So I guess in the meantime, I should find someone to raid, someone to send us all along to if you want to watch other things. Let me see. I'm not used to streaming at this time, so I have no idea who's live right now.
Let us go screaming
Mario the
onto
Ganger's playing
stream.
Valhalla. Oh my god, we're going there.
Ooh, Cyborg.
Yeah.
Cyborg bartender game. I love it.
Yeah, I love that game. It was so good. Okay, we're going
It
there.
surprised the hell out of me when I found out it was also a dating sim.
I know you could technically do that if you want to, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Unfortunately,
this
the
is
playthrough I watched, Mal played it for a little bit, and I was watching him when he did it. He unfortunately overspent towards the end of the game, and he couldn't make the last month of rent.
ah.
And I was just like, no, because he wanted to buy a potted plant or something.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, here we go. I have found.
That's sad.
I know.
Um,
He's like, the ending you get for that isn't terrible by any means, because he made all the rents up to that point, but um, it wasn't, I think, as good as he would have wanted. I mean, it's the best way to put it. Anyways,
hmm.
all right, raid countdown, go. Right. But yeah, again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Please feel free to either DM me on Twitter or message me on Discord if you have any thoughts or feelings about that you want to share about this, about things to improve or things you'd like to see. Okay. Okay, bye-bye. 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 Off everyone goes to the raid. Bye-bye.
Yay.